Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
It's the Paranormal Experience on Unborn Radio. With your host, Paddy McGough.
As I've said many, many times, I'm a non-believer myself, but I am very interested in the unexplained, the paranormal, which stands for anything beyond part of the reality observed by physical universe. So it's basically anything, you know, that's unexplained. You know, you've got the likes of the Bigfoot and Sasquatch and UFOs, spirits, demons, you know, all that sort of stuff. And that's the sort of stuff we'll be talking about. I've got Dave, who's doing all the production stuff in the background, so he's to blame for everything that goes technically wrong.
Thanks very much. That's great, Paddy. Thank you.
But and I mean, we've been, you know, going crazy over this last hour trying to get connected, but we're hopefully now alive, and obviously, you know, if there's anything you want to talk about, then please do. As I say, we have other members of the team as well, but because this is our very first one, then there's just me and Dave. But we do have Aaron, who will in the future be the person taking the phone calls. I've got to do it myself, but that's just because his partner has recently given birth to a baby boy, so he's obviously excused, shall we say. As I mentioned, we've got Dave, who basically takes control of the sound levels. So if you can hear me, well, you can't see me obviously because it's radio. But if you can hear me, then Dave's doing his job right. If you can't hear me, then I'm talking to myself. So it doesn't really matter what Dave's doing, does it? Then we have Christine, who will be joining us later on. Further down the road for the paranormal experience. She's our paranormal investigator. She's the person who'll be telling us all about where to find paranormal stuff and what have you, because we are going to go out there and we're going to do some live broadcasts from places that have had a paranormal experience. But don't forget, the whole point of tonight is to listen to you. It's all about you, as Unborn Radio is in total, but it's all about you. So anything you want to talk to me about, then please get in touch. The phone number is 01207 795 005. That's 01207 795 005. Or alternatively, you can text the Paranormal Experience on 60777, but you must start your message with 89MX4. So that's 60777, but you must start your message with 89MX4, and anything that you want, you know, just let us know. But anyway, let's kick off the paranormal experience, and let's talk about some of the stuff that you could possibly ring me about. Obviously, you know, as I've said, the paranormal is all about different things. So in amongst that, you've got things like spiritualism, ghost hunting, cryptozoology, which is the people who are looking for the likes of Bigfoot and the likes. Excuse me, and then obviously you've got the other sort of things like ufology, you know, spacecraft, aliens, anything like that, and also included in that you've got clairvoyancy, demonic possessions. I mean, I'm sure we've all heard the story of The Exorcist, but do you know that the Exorcist is actually based on what is believed to be true events? There's actually a young guy. I mean, I know the film, it tends to be well, it is not tend to be. It's a young girl, but the actual story was a young 15-year-old guy who was apparently possessed by a demon, and the family was so concerned they called in the priests, etc., who has carried out some sort of exorcism on him, and as I say, it became a film. So let's have a bit of a chat about some of the conspiracy theories that's out there, and yeah, there's some weird and wonderful ones. So what should we start with? Let's start with probably the most famous conspiracy theory that there is, the moon landings. And, you know, everybody, you know, we're 50 years on, and to this day, people are still saying that the moon landings didn't happen. Did they happen? Didn't they happen? Well, you know, why wouldn't they happen? That's the question. But some of the myths that surround Armstrong himself, he also do a lot of the rounds as well. One of the myths is that Armstrong was picked for the Apollo 11 because he was a civilian, and the White House wanted the first man on the moon to be a civilian. Well, that's untrue. He was a military pilot, he was a test pilot, and so he'd had plenty of missions, you know, testing aircraft, etc. So that obviously was debunked straight away. Probably one of the most famous ones is that Armstrong pulled rank when it came to actually getting out and being the first man on the moon. And once again, even Buzz Aldrin has debunked that one, because what actually happened was the way the commander, as in Neil Armstrong, was sitting, then the hinges on the door, there's no way that Buzz Aldrin could have been the first man out, because he would have to have clambered onto the top of Neil Armstrong to then actually get out. So it's to do with the door. If the door had actually swung the other way, then it would have been Buzz Aldrin who actually stepped out on the moon first. But no, as it happens, it was obviously Neil Armstrong, because what they had to do was Neil had to get out, do his bit, you know, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind, and this, that, and the other. And then Buzz had to get into his seat to then get into the to then come down the ladder. They reckoned that it was a leap for mankind because it was a 3-foot jump, but again, something that they've proven was obviously wrong. And they reckon he muffed his lines, because the line was supposed to say one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind, but he actually said one small step for man. But Neil, many years later, said that he did actually say it. It's just the recording didn't pick it up. Now, I've tried listening to the recording umpteen times. I can't hear it, but I could be wrong. But yeah, he did actually say one small step for man. That's what I heard. He reckons he didn't. But, you know, so it means that line, although it sounds like a great line to say when somebody steps off, and you thought, you know, that it would be great to come up with that, you know, on spec. Apparently it was planned that he was going to say it. And here we have the actual recording of the Neil Armstrong speech.
Right, hold on, Paddy.
Apparently we're not. No, we do. We have it coming up. It's just I've caught Dave off guard a little bit. That's what the problem is. So as you can hear, at no point does he say a man. But he reckons he did, and the recording didn't pick it up. But so if we want to just listen to that again.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
So as you can see, at no point did it even sound like he had the A man in it. But apparently that's what he was supposed to have done. Another myth about Armstrong is that after the flight he withdrew entirely from public contact. Again, this is not true, because he did many talks about it and this, that, and the other, and obviously, you know, he definitely was out there. He didn't capitalise on his fame. He didn't. he didn't do after dinner speeches where he got paid lots of money, but he did go out and do a lot. Another myth is, and this has always been my favourite one about Neil Armstrong, is the fact of during his moonwalk, he's supposed to have said, "Good luck, Mr. Gorski." Now, it's quite a funny one, that one. And the reason being, apparently, his next-door neighbour had asked his wife to perform a certain sex act on him. Let's just say with her mouth. And I'm sure you understand exactly what I'm saying. And she, Mrs. Gorski, has apparently turned around and said, "I'll do that when the young lad, because obviously Neil Armstrong was this young lad at the time, when the young lad next door walks on the moon." Now that would be a great story if it was true, but sadly it isn't. He didn't have a next door neighbour called Gorski, and he never ever said that particular line. It was Buddy Hackett who actually made it up. The comedian Buddy Hackett made that actual line up during a comedy routine. But it would have been a great story if that was the case, but it definitely wasn't. And Armstrong, coming back to the paranormal side of it, Armstrong is supposed to have observed UFOs on the way to the moon, and then again on the way back. But most of the Apollo crews have said that they've noticed flashing lights, etc., whilst they've been out there in space and whatever. But apparently it's just the satellite Saturn V, which, when it was jettisoned, has lights on it, etc. So apparently that's what it is. I mean, obviously I've never been to space, so I wouldn't know. And then, as I said, the most famous conspiracy theory of all was that Armstrong actually filmed all the moon surface sequences in Nevada, in the desert. Yeah, that would have been great. But if you look back at the technology that they had, I mean, just the technology to launch the spacecraft itself. Did you know that your mobile phone is 32,000, not a couple of hundred or whatever, but 32,000 times more powerful than the computer that they used in Apollo 11? So if you imagine them trying to recreate the moon landings, obviously that would be quite difficult with the technology they had at the time. But yeah, there's still, 50 years later, there's still people saying, because it's something to do with the lighting. Also the flag. The flag is apparently, there's no atmosphere on the moon, so how can the flag be flying? And that one's been debunked, because what they said was they put metal rods in the flag. Because if you stick a flag in where there's no atmosphere and it's a flag hanging, it would just be like straight up and down, wouldn't it? And how boring would that be? Whereas, being the US and, all this, cheering on American whatever, they wanted the flag to be flying. So they knew that if they didn't put wire in it, it would just hang loose like a limp flag. So that's the reason why. And also when they've slammed it into the moon's surface, because the other one is that it actually waves around, the metal pole that it's attached to obviously causes vibration, and the vibration causes vibration in the wires which is inside the flag, and therefore the flag looks like it's actually flying in the wind. So all them have been debunked. And the last myth about Neil Armstrong is, as an astronaut facing an enormous physical challenge, Armstrong worked out tirelessly in the gymnasium to strengthen his body. And yeah, he did live on a healthy regime, but he rarely exercised. I mean, he obviously exercised a lot more than I did, because, but even without exercise, he would have still been fine as long as he ate the correct amount of food. And that's exactly what he did. So there we go. That's all this stuff about Neil Armstrong. And it just goes to show, there's people out there who literally believe anything. And the problem with conspiracy theories is that people believe them. with a conspiracy theory, if you come up with enough information which sounds real, then people believe that it is real, and that's exactly why these conspiracy theories take off. Now I'm going to have a slight break at the moment, because my mouth's getting all dry and I'm going to end up coughing and what have you. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on a story from a lady by the name of Linda, just to, tell you a little bit about the Schooner Hotel in Allenmouth. So this is Linda and the Schooner Hotel.
The Schooner Hotel. The Schooner Hotel has experienced murder, suicide and massacre during its 400-year history. Perhaps it comes as little surprise then that the hotel has twice been awarded the title of Most Haunted Hotel in Great Britain by the Poltergeist Society. It is said to be home to over 60 individual ghosts, and there have been over 3,000 recorded sightings within the last decade alone. The Schooner Hotel is in Allenmouth, a small village in Northumberland situated at the mouth of the River Alne. The village was a key seaport by 1208, dealing primarily in grain. The village suffered setbacks in 1336 when Scottish raiders attacked, and in 1348 the Black Death hit Allenmouth, killing almost every villager. The Schooner Hotel was built in the 17th century at a time when Allenmouth was thriving as a trading port. Smuggling was rife, and the new coaching inn, the Schooner, became a popular place for smugglers to spend the night. A secret tunnel was created in the cellar leading down to the nearby beach. This allowed smugglers to come and go under cover of darkness with relative ease to carry out their illegal traffic in contraband. In 1742, the Schooner began to brew its own ale, which went down well with the residents. A cask of the ale was given to a local parson, Parson Smythe, who was touched by the gift and decided to try the ale. Unfortunately, as he was connecting the tap, it shot out and struck him on the head, killing him instantly. The tap was returned to the Schooner, and locals believed that if the tap was ever used again, the parson's blood would flow from it. And legend has it that the De Vere family, a married couple with 2 children, came over from France and booked into the inn. They were shown to their room, the room that is now room 28. Little did they know that it would be the last few moments of their lives. A gypsy sneaked up behind them and hit them all on the back of the head with a heavy object, then dragged them into the room and murdered all 4 of them by cutting their throats. After taking their valuables, the bodies were removed from the hotel through the smugglers' tunnel. Their corpses were then taken out to sea on a small boat and thrown overboard. The wing where this cold-blooded massacre took place is the most haunted area of the Schooner Hotel. In rooms 28, 29 and 30, dark shadows have regularly been seen. Visitors have reported feeling sick or dizzy when in these rooms, but as soon as they leave, they inexplicably feel fine. The spirits of a young boy and a girl have also been seen and heard, playing in room 28 during the night. Whispering and screams have been heard in this room, often by staff members who have been in the corridor outside when the room is known to have been empty. The corridor outside these rooms has the original flooring from when the hotel was built 400 years ago. It has creaky floorboards, which has resulted in a lot of people hearing footsteps walking along the corridor. This is often reported by terrified visitors who are standing still and alone in the corridor at the time. Guests staying in room 30 have complained of a drastic drop in temperature, and when they have tried to leave the room, they found it locked and have been unable to unlock it. Then, to their absolute horror, they have seen a dark, shadowy figure in the room with them. It is said that a man committed suicide in room 30. It is possible that this is the phantom that haunts it to this day. On Christmas Eve 1806, there was a tremendous storm which caused the River Arne to break its banks. This caused the river to change course, making the harbour less accessible and leading, ultimately, to the decline of Allenmouth's trade by sea. On that stormy night, a woman waited patiently for the return of her husband, a fisherman. She sat by the fireside in the schooner's bar, with her 6-year-old daughter asleep on her lap. A local man burst through the door with terrible news. The woman's husband had been killed as his boat had been caught in the storm and he had drowned. The woman fainted due to shock and hit her head on the hearth. As her mother fell, the sleeping child was thrown into the open fire. She immediately awoke and began screaming as the flames consumed her. Others in the bar managed to pull her out of the fire. However, she was very badly burnt, her face charred and black, and she died within moments. The spirit of the young girl, known as Lizzie, haunts the Chase Bar. She's a playful ghost and is said to dance around the tables before heading towards the fireplace and vanishing into it. The corridor outside rooms 15 to 19 is home to the ghost of another child. Little is known about the small boy, but it is believed that he rides up and down the corridor at night on a small tricycle. Scratches have been found on the doors in the corridor with no explanation for their appearance. It is said these scrapes have been caused by the young boy's tricycle bumping into the doors. There are other spirits that don't appear to be confined to one room or any one area of the hotel. People have awoken during the night to see a man dressed in military uniform staring directly at them. This has been reported in several rooms over the years. A spectral chambermaid has been witnessed in the corridors and staircases throughout the schooner. She has been seen most often on the stairs leading to rooms 31 and 32. There have also been countless reports of a white mist seen moving swiftly through the corridors, as well as lights switching themselves on and off in empty rooms. Room 4 is another room to have experienced murder. A mystery killer choked a man to death while he slept. Visitors to the room have heard noises in the night sounding like someone gasping for air. Others have actually had the experience of feeling hands tight around their throat, trying to strangle them. A night at the Schooner Hotel is certainly not for the faint of heart. I hope you enjoyed this story. It was taken from the book written by Rob Kirkup, Ghostly Northumberland, and is available at all good bookshops. It was first published in 2008 by the History Press.
So that was Linda with the story of the Schooner Hotel. Now, what makes it more interesting is Linda and Dave actually lived in the Schooner Hotel, and Dave actually slept in room 28. So as you heard on the story there, it's quite a haunted room, apparently the most haunted room in the hotel. So Dave, tell us about your experience of living in the Schooner Hotel.
Well, we moved in there when I was about 15. My dad got the job as a manager up there, and we moved in, and I've got to be honest with you, I never really felt right. If it's
right.
Sort of... I don't know actually the best way to put it, but it was always one of these situations where you just never ever felt safe. You never felt as if, you know, you were alone by yourself and stuff.
But when you say you never felt safe, did you actually think you could end up in some sort of physical damage, or?
No, not at all. It was just one of those situations. I know it sounds daft being like a 15-year-old lad, like playing rugby. I was in the army cadets and stuff at the time and things like that. So it wasn't sort of a, you know, it wasn't I was scared of stuff like that, but it was just the experience of walking to the bedroom on a night time.
Yeah.
When you were in the room, sort of you could see out the corner of your eye sort of dark shadows moving around and things like that. So I spent most of me the year and a half that I lived there with my head literally underneath the covers when I was in the room by
Yeah,
myself.
because we all think that, don't we? If somebody's going to break into your house, hide under the covers because that's the safest place.
Yeah, it's armor-plated.
you know, yeah, exactly. That duvet is so thick that it can stop anything from coming through. So, did you? I mean, I know you're saying that you felt stuff, but did you actually see anything?
There was a number of dark shadows used to see out the corner of your eye, and it was one of those things where you were sitting reading a book or you were watching television, and you'd sort of see something move out of the corner of your eye in the peripheral vision,
Right.
and you'd look across and it'd be like a dark shape, or there'd be like a draft going through the room, but obviously no windows open or no door open. 'Cause
Yeah.
with this living in the hotel, with this being outside of my parents' flat, you had to actually physically, you had a key to lock the door.
Right.
So you had to, lock yourself in, because on the odd occasion, funny enough, you would have the odd person coming up to have a look, see if there was anything
Right.
there. And
Yeah.
over the other side of the building, there was the staff quarters, and regularly the staff had stuff pinched
Right.
because people would.
Oh, because is that like sort of general public,
Yeah.
just like, the know that the hotel is reputedly haunted, so therefore they want to have a bit look, which is quite. I mean, if my house was reputedly haunted and people wanted to come into my bedroom, I wouldn't be too impressed.
I think most of the time it was actually just sort of members of the public.
Right.
Somebody sort of. We used to have. There was a couple of people that. There was I don't know whether I should say this, but there's there's a person who actually lived.
Just don't name any names.
I'm not going to name any names, but there was somebody who used to live in the village who was notorious, for sort of letting himself in places and things like that.
Right.
I used to. There was a young lady who used to work there, and I used to borrow. She had the old style 80s boom boxes, and I used to borrow it. And I used to go down the beach with my friends, as you do when you're kids and stuff. And I returned it one night, and she came and knocked on my door and said, "Have you seen me boombox sort of thing?" And I was like, it was the old 3D superwoofer type thing.
Yeah, all right.
And it had gone completely. And
You hadn't just sold it, had you?
no, God, no. Hadn't, but it had gone. There was other things going on. But I mean, going back to the sort of paranormal thing, I think probably one of the most amazing things that actually happened was, there's two things that spring to mind when we're on there. There was a guy who stayed over at the hotel quite a few times, and he was an ex-RAF. I believe he was based, I don't know whether it was Duxford, but it was around that area.
Yeah.
And he used to come up for his holidays, and he used to stay up at Almouth. And he said that he was introduced to the place because Douglas Bader, obviously the famous.
Oh yeah, the RAF pilot, yeah.
The RAF pilot who lost his legs.
Yeah.
And
What, in the schooner?
No. Well, apparently he got legless a few times.
Oh yes, very very good, dear. Very droll.
Yeah, sorry, it's that time of night. But no, he supposedly it was one of his favourite places to go on holiday. I don't know how true this is.
What, the Allenmouth or
Allenmouth,
the
yes,
schooner
and he used to
hotel or
always,
right?
Yeah, he used to always stay in the schooner. Now apparently,
Is this Douglas Porter or the guy that you're talking
Douglas
about?
Bader,
Right.
Douglas Bader. So, and apparently the way the story goes is he is supposed to haunt room 4.
Who Douglas Porter is?
Yes, supposedly. Now people have said that they've seen somebody. There's several ghosts.
Now,
Obviously in the hotel.
as you know, Dave, the way my mind works, the amount of jokes that are flying through my head at this
Yes.
precise moment about short spirits and
Yes, yeah. Well, let's keep it there. I know you too well. But if you think about it, when sort of staying in the hotel, there was always something going on. There was always something happening. There was always sort of, and I mean, I can remember being in there, and there was literally no residents in, especially sort of around Christmas time, early January and stuff. The place was literally, pardon the pun, like a graveyard because we didn't have anybody staying in.
Yeah.
And it was always a quiet month, January, and you used to witness things all the time. The other thing that was absolutely fantastic about it is we actually found the tunnel.
The tunnel that your ma mentions on
Yes,
By the way, that's the reason why they were living in the hotel together, because Linda is David's mother, and obviously his mother and father were the landlords of the hotel at the time.
Yeah. So hello, Mum. Always want to do that. So we found the tunnel, and the tunnel literally goes right the way down underneath the street. Now, if you I don't know whether it's probably, I suppose, if you're not going to be able to get to Allenmouth, if you Google Earth it,
Right.
and if you look at the front of the hotel, you'll actually see there's a side street opposite which goes straight down towards a golf course.
All right.
And
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
bottom of that hill, you'll see that there's an old World War II defence. It's like a, the concrete.
Well, like the coastal
batteries,
bunkers, sort of. But yeah. Yeah.
And it's converted into a toilet, so you can have,
Right.
obviously that's right
Nice.
to the.
That's showing a lot of respect to our guys, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, it's handy convenience, if you pardon the pun.
Right.
So, but it actually goes right down. The tunnel goes down, and it's literally underneath that. Now, when they actually
Right.
built that, they actually the stuff out,
Yeah.
and I think probably the most scariest thing that ever happened to me down there was I went into the walk-in fridge. Now, if you can imagine, the building's on sort of like 2 levels. So you go in through the front of the building, and then you go down this long corridor. Then there's quite a steep staircase at the back,
Right.
which takes you down into lower one. So if you go into the car park around the back, you'll see it's on a different level.
All right. 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 Yeah.
And he went down there, and there's some storage rooms down the bottom, and there was this massive walk-in fridge at the end. And I always remember I'd gone down this one night, and I'd done my cheese sandwich, as you do.
Yeah,
I'd
yeah,
take
yeah,
the cheese
yeah.
back down,
Yeah.
what was left of it.
Didn't you know you're not meant to eat cheese before you go to bed?
This is true. This is true, but it was sort of snack time. And what actually happened is I got in, and I went to my dad had said it was, will you please check that the back door's locked?
Right.
And it was, my mum was away on with my brother and sister at the time, so it was just me and my dad in the hotel.
Yeah.
And I went, and there's like a double door at the back, or there was at the time.
Right.
And I went to the back door, closed it, locked it,
Yeah.
made sure it was locked, put the bolts over.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
In the door, click, click, click. And as I turned round, I looked, and exactly where the door was,
Right.
I am utterly convinced that I saw a guy who looked like a King Charles style, with with the
Right. Right. With the wigs and
the
yeah.
tricorner hat and
Ah,
everything.
right,
And
right,
he just kind of walked through the door to the fridge and kind of
Right.
looked at us, and I kind of clocked contact with him.
What are you doing with that cheese?
I've got to be honest, the cheese sandwich ended up being left because I think, I've never run so fast in my life, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I was out the door like a thunderbolt,
Yeah.
and I went screaming up to the reception where my dad was sat behind the counter in reception, out of breath, and I couldn't physically speak. I was that scared. And I legged it. And it was probably, I think that's probably the most scary paranormal experience I've ever
Right.
had.
Was that your first sighting of something, which you could like sort of? I mean, I know you've said you saw dark shadows and things like that, but what was that your first clear sighting? And is that why you were so scared, or was it the whole concept of it was the middle of the night, you weren't expecting anybody there, you saw this thing, and obviously it spooked you?
It's a really good question, to be honest, Paddy. And the thing is that there was the first time I'd seen something and I've been scared.
Right.
Up until that point, I have seen other things.
Yeah,
Obviously, I am a believer. And that'll come out over the course of the shows and stuff. But what I actually witnessed there was the only time I've, in fact, in my whole life, that I've ever been frightened of something that I thought that I saw.
And did you actually, when you see you were frightened, is it just the fact of you saw it, or did you actually feel that you could come to some sort of harm?
It was actually the fact.
I mean, was it the librarian in the beginning of the Ghostbusters style, where
it wasn't like...
I'm talking about when she turns, not when she's just standing there telling
when she
right.
that at all. What it was literally, he was a little bit taller than me. I mean, sort of, I was around sort of 5'9", 5'10" at the time.
Right.
He was a little bit taller than me, but I didn't know whether it was... I thought it was a real person.
Right.
That's how real it was.
Right.
And Christine's I was going to say, Christine's asked there if I felt threatened. Yes, I did, because it was kind of, I think it was 50% shock of, my God, what's happening?
Yeah.
And then the other part was going, what's this strange bloke doing in here?
Right.
And why is he dressed like that?
Yeah.
And it was kind of, I didn't want to wait and find out. What happened was, when I got up to, reception, my dad basically told us to stop being a silly banana. And,
yeah, I'm sure that's exactly the words he used as well.
He just told us to stop being silly. And he said, go down and make sure the back door's locked. So obviously I went back down again. I had a torch this time, and I went back down, and it was. I mean, although there was a walk-in fridge there, and there was a lot of freezers in the room next to it, there was a lot of, the chest freezers.
Yeah.
That was always a red-hot room because of the amount of electricity in there and the amount of chest freezers and stuff. It was always a warm room, and I walked in there, and I could see my breath in front of my mouth.
Right.
So
right.
Well,
it was that cold.
Yeah, and it was one.
But was it that cold because it was that cold, or was it that cold? Did it turn cold?
It was August.
Right.
So
it should have been. I was going to say it should have been actually quite warm with it being summertime. Yeah.
It had been a red hot day. I remember that. I remember that. And it had been a red hot day and stuff like that. And obviously this corridor got dark. But I think for me it was one of those situations where that I've seen plenty more since.
Yeah.
But on that's kind of the one time that I got myself. I was very worried about it, to be fair.
Right.
Same as when I was in going up to the bedroom and stuff. The corridor, I didn't particularly like the corridor very much.
Right, yeah. You've told me this before about the corridor and the distance that you had to walk to your room, etc. Yeah. I mean, I've never actually been to the Schooner Hotel, so I can't. Well, I know you have told me, and there's absolutely no reason to dispute you because you lived there. But I couldn't visualise it because I've never been.
Yeah. You see, the thing is obviously the flats were like sort of separate. So my mum and dad's flat, and my sister and my brother were in there because obviously they were quite young at the time. Yeah. My sister got a little bit older, and she ended up with a bedroom next to on the corridor that I was in.
It was the one that wasn't haunted.
Yeah, probably. But
see that's women's lib and all that equality. Yeah. Yes. Stick the boy in the haunted room, and the girl can have the one that isn't haunted. Yeah.
To be fair, we didn't like I say. I wasn't aware of that situation. Nobody had said anything. I mean, there was a couple of my friends that sort of lived in the village and stuff. And there was my best friend John used to live next door to us. Yeah. And he used to hop over the wall to go and see him.
Right. Were you meant to hop over the wall, or was it just
his
like...
dad didn't mind. It was quite funny, though, when he jumped over the other side and he nearly landed on somebody's car who'd come and park for the night. Right. But no, he used to... And sort of John's dad, a wonderful gentleman by the name of Proster. I'll never forget him. Lovely chap. And Crusty used to tell us little tales and stuff, but he was always that type of bloke where you thought he was pulling your legs.
Yeah. Well, you do when you talk to the older generation. I mean, here I am, 52-year-old, talking about the older generation. But yeah, when you talk about the older generation, you do. There is times when they're telling you something, and you're proper listening to them, and you're really engrossed in what they're saying, and then they'll say something which is completely ridiculous and couldn't possibly happen, and then you realise that they've just been pulling your leg the whole time. But it seems to be, I mean, have we lost that? Have we lost that sort of talking to people and, getting them to like sort of, believe what we're saying, but to turn out... I mean, I know on the internet and what have you, they have lots of pranks. But you can see the pranks coming, whereas you could never do that with an older generation. You could tell you a story, and you would absolutely believe it, and then they hit you with the punchline, and you realise that they've just wound you up for the last 20 minutes.
I've got to be honest with you, being the manager's son in a hotel, and manager's son in the pubs and stuff, I've probably heard every wind up possible because obviously the staff used to do it for sport. Yeah. So. I'd kind of seen quite a few of them, and like I say, I could probably draw back on quite a few memories where I could say, oh, well, this happened at this point. Yeah. But the thing is obviously, with when Crosser spoke to us, I didn't know whether he was actually saying, warning us, or giving us the heads up, or whatever it was. Do you know what I mean? Now, I always remember, I think probably one of the funniest things that happened, when because obviously the schooner was on Most Haunted.
Right. I mean, I've seen some of the Most Haunted. As I've already said, and as David said, we are of poles apart in the fact that I'm a non-believer, Dave's a believer, but we're both friends, and at no point have we argued about our beliefs. And the reason we don't argue about it is because we both respect each other's belief. I respect that Dave's a believer. He respects that I'm a non-believer. He doesn't try to convince me otherwise. I don't try to convince him, as you've heard in the conversation. I don't try and convince that what he saw isn't what he said he saw. And that's I think that's what it's all about. It's all about respecting people's beliefs. If you don't believe in it, then fair enough, you don't believe in it. It doesn't mean that it's wrong. Let's take, for instance, the biggest belief in the world, religion. Now, I'm not going to get into a whole religious debate, otherwise we'd be here, till this time next year. But, somebody or something happened many, many years ago, and a book was wrote about it, or 4 books were wrote about it, to be precise. And them 4 books, to pardon the pun, have become gospel. And people now live by them books. So what's to say what Dave saw isn't real, and what's to say that it is real? Exactly the same as religion. What's to say religion is real, and what's to say it isn't real? It's all about personal beliefs. And if you believe, then you believe. As I don't, but I do like listening. I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm listening to Dave talking, and I'm really interested in what he's got to say. And I know me and Dave have spoke many times in the past about different things, but I've never asked him about the school hotel. I mean, I know he has mentioned about where his bedroom was and what have you. But other than that, he's never really told me. I didn't know about this guy dressed in the Charles paraphernalia and what have you. Tonight was the first time. I mean, I didn't even realise he had cheese until tonight. But because I always thought that he didn't eat cheese, because when he gets a pizza, he doesn't have cheese on it. No, it's the tomato you don't have on it. Yeah, so you're getting confused. But yeah, so but I knew there was something he didn't have on pizza. But so yeah, it was the first time I ever heard it, and I'm sitting here and I'm interested, because that's the whole point of the Paranormal Experience show. It's all about respecting each other, and it's the interest. Yeah, there's people out there who annoy me, and the people that annoy me are the ones that will tell me that this is what happened, regardless. I saw a ghost. Yes, it was a ghost. You cannot tell me. And Dave, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about it, Dave, but Dave had a similar experience with somebody. And bearing in mind, Dave's a believer, but he also realises when things aren't real.
I think I am a believer. I believe in a lot of things, but I think the way that social media is at the moment, and the way that sort of people go on with social media, it's kind of, obviously we're members of normal sort of paranormal groups. I've even actually got my own paranormal group on there, which fingers crossed will be reactivating fairly shortly. But when you actually look at these people in the groups and things like, and they put things on like orbs and things like that, and there was a picture I commented on probably about 48 hours ago, and when I looked at the photograph, the question was, what can you see? Yeah, people were saying things. It was on one of the American ones, and
I'm not going to say nothing.
Yeah, well, as Christine says in the chat room there, we've got to respect each other, and I'll give you the thumbs up. Definitely. But I think, and there was a lot of comments, and it's like, this is like a demon, and this is this, and this is that, and this is something or other, and etc. And you're reading through the comments, and all I saw was a black cat with the eyes caught by the light of the camera.
Obviously, the reason why we have cat's eyes on the road, because they're very reflective.
Well, funny enough, yes, it was this sort of like a couple of yellow eyes, and it was like, looks as though they dropped the camera on the floor with the lens facing up, and it looked as though the camera jumped over the top of it. Yeah, and I commented, "Cat." Well,
you received a rather pleasant private message, didn't you?
Yes, but I mean, I've got to be honest with you. For me, it was, I mean, I have done quite a bit of photography in the past as well, and it was to me, it was just kind of like, yep, there's a blurred cat running across the top of it. Christine's commented, she's saying that she couldn't even see that, if that was the one that I think if I commented, you might have seen that, Christine, because obviously we're friends on Facebook. But and it's these people when they put these pictures on, and they're like, this is, I can see this. This is me, such and such, auntie, uncle, whatever.
Definitely.
And it's kind of like, you've got to take it for what it is. It could be chromatic abrasion, could be lens
Yeah,
flare, could
absolutely,
be
absolutely.
one of a million things and stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, it brings us nicely into the sort of the UFO thing.
Yeah.
We talk about UFOs, and
Yeah,
you know, I've only ever, as much as I believe, and you know, my personal factor on that is, if we were the only people in this entire galaxy, entire universe.
well, 7.7 billion people live on this planet.
Yes.
We would have to be totally arrogant to believe that the 7.7 billion are the only people that exist, or the only beings, shall I say, that exist in the whole galaxy. Because at the end of the day, how many people, or how many, living organisms are there on this planet? There may be 7.7 billion people, but how many other things is there? Spiders, flies, worms, birds. You know, how many different species of birds is there? You know, so we could go on forever and list. I mean, they're still finding species to this day in the sea, on land. I mean, there was something reported the other day about an animal which I thought was extinct, but then they found one 40 years after it had been declared distinct. They found one way in the jungle somewhere. So just on this planet alone, there's vast amount. As I say, there's 7.7 billion people, and as we know, various races. You know, so a person isn't just, you know, this is a person. You know, show a picture of a person, this is a person. Well, it isn't, because there is variance on that particular sort of variety of people. And the same with insects, flies, birds, and fish, etc. They're all out there. So for us to turn around and say that in a galaxy which on one planet alone has so much of vast life, to turn around and say that we are the only living, or the only planet that has life forms on it, would be, you know, typical of the human race. Very arrogant. Now, I don't believe we've been visited. There's a difference between believing that there's life out there and believing that we've been visited, and that's where my belief stands as far as UFO is concerned.
Paddy, you opened the show there tonight. Talking about conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably the greatest conspiracy theory out there, is have we been visited and are the governments
Yeah.
keeping it away from us? Do you know?
Well, what you call it, I mean, I've got a little story about it here, when I find it. Where's it at? I'm sure you'll have all heard it, the Roswell.
Yes.
You know, you'll have all heard the Roswell story of, and, you know, of how there was an alien spacecraft crashed in Roswell, and obviously everybody, you know, what you call it, everybody went crazy about it because of the fact of, I will find it. It is definitely here. I know, because I just read it. So where we're at,
Just going to say, Paddy, while you're just searching out for that one, guys, we've got the Amber on Radio chat room going on in the background there, and obviously you've heard us refer to it. We've got Christine in there at the moment.
Sitting all by herself.
Yeah, it was me and Christine in there, bless her, and she's doing a sterling job, bless her. But if you get yourself across to our website, which is Amber on Radio, that's AMBRONRADIO webradiosite.com.
Yeah, it's a bit of awful. It will eventually change. I mean, I am actually looking at of just changing it. I mean, we currently have another website which is defunct, or is about to become defunct, which is ambron-radio.com. Now, I'm actually looking at, and hopefully we can get a hold of it, just an ambronradio.com. So no hyphen, just ambronradio is all one word, .com. So hopefully we can get a hold of that one and stick it on this, which is obviously less of a mouthful than ambronradio.webradiosite.com.
That's it. You've done that before.
Yeah, just a few times.
But if you get yourself across there, guys, and register, there's a little register thing where it'll ask you to just put in your email address and stuff like that. Christine says that would be a lot easier. We'll be able to actually see you, and if you want to comment on anything we're talking about, if you want to text the show, the text number is 60777, and if you start your message with 89MX4, so that's 60777, and you start your message with 89MX4. We'll keep an eye out for those messages as well. And obviously we want to... supposedly there's quite a few of you listening out there, as we can see on the stats and stuff. So if you are listening, please get in contact with us, because at the moment we're kind of... we're just rabbling away to ourselves at the moment here. That's what it feels like. Apart from Christine, of course, because she's out there, bless her.
But there is over 1,000 of you actually listening at this precise moment in time. So, you know, let's, Christine saying, come on, guys, apart from these two, I am on my own. You know, so, you know, and obviously listening to the paranormal stories, is that really you want to be on your own? But anyway, you know, let's...
You'll be all right, Christine, trust me. You'll be fine.
Let's join Christine in the chat room. I mean, I'm not in the chat room. Dave's doing all that. He's doing all the typing and all that. I'm what's called the voice of... the paranormal experience. Dave is obviously the technical wizard and whatever, and obviously rather than me talking to myself, even though I do like talking to myself and I do love the sound of my own voice, yeah, I often record myself and play it on my iPod. No, I don't.
What are you doing?
Yeah. So you know, if you want to call us as well, don't forget. I mean, I know Dave's just read out the text number, which is 60777. And then start your message with 89MX4. Don't forget you can actually call us on 01207 795 005. Now, if you don't live in the UK, because as you probably realised, especially from our accents, we're from the north of the UK. If you are not in the UK, then just replace the first 0 with 44. So it would be 44 1207 795 005, and obviously we'll get you. If you don't want to be on air, that's probably what the chat room's best for. Because if you come into the chat room, you can tell us. We'll then read it out. If you don't want your name mentioned, we'll not mention your name. You know, because that's the way we are. As I said, it's all about respect. So if you don't want us to mention who you are, you don't want to speak on the phone, but you still want to tell us a story, then come in the chat room and let us know. You can even private message Dave. As I say, he's the one in the chat room at the moment. And
Dave Vader.
All you do is click on the Dave Vader, and it'll give you the option to private message, and then you tell us the story, and Dave will obviously tell me what it is, or I can actually see the computer, so he doesn't need to tell me. It's not like we're sitting like a million miles away from each other. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying about Roswell. Apparently, this is the story. A ranch in Roswell in New Mexico, there was an alien spacecraft crashed in 1947. So the legend claims that a disc or some sort of spacecraft was found on a ranch, and that the government were covering it up, because the government cover everything up, don't they? I mean, yeah, we do know that there's a lot of cover-ups happening in the government, but really. So while rumours of the aliens circulated, some people speculated that the crash was just a plain old weather balloon, and later on the government actually decided to come clean and say that's exactly what they were. Although they were weather balloons, they weren't being used for weather. And this is the reason why conspiracy theories happen, because the government denied all knowledge of it. The reason the government denied all knowledge of it, because they were spying on the Soviet Union using these weather balloons. So obviously, they didn't want the Soviet Union to know that they were spying on them, so they denied all knowledge of weather balloons. But then eventually, they came clean and said that yes, it was weather balloons, and therefore that's... what the crash was. So you've maybe seen the film Alien Autopsy, which is supposed to be about Roswell and about an alien that they carried an autopsy on, but they didn't, because there was no aliens. But that's exactly the sort of thing that we're talking about. You know, I don't believe that we've been visited, but as I said, I think we'd be too arrogant to think that we were the only people on the in the galaxy.
I've got a theory about this, and I don't know.
Oh no! Do we really want to hear it?
Yeah. we were talking about this. Just remind me, Paddy, the Keanu Reeves movie, The Day the Earth Stood Still.
The Day the Earth Stood Still, yeah.
Yeah. I watched that recently, the Keanu Reeves version of it, and it just sort of sat there, and I was watching. I was thinking to myself, that's probably the reaction we'd probably have, is people would start shooting at anything. if or you know, it'd be like a hostile, it'd be quite a hostile welcome, if you want to use that term.
Yeah, yeah.
It would be, and that sometimes does sort of make me think that if there was intelligent life out there, which I think is the big factor, if it was intelligent life and it was going to come and introduce itself to us.
If it was intelligent, it wouldn't be coming anywhere near Earth, would it?
Yeah, it's probably, they probably wouldn't actually turn up. They would, you know, they'd probably sort of take one look and think, oh dear, right, okay, see you later, thanks very much. But again,
but then there's all these people who apparently are being probed. You know, it's sort of, you just couldn't make some of the stories up, could you? You know, my sister got kidnapped, and you know, she woke up on a table with a satellite sticking up her bum or whatever, you know. But that's the point. The stories are so ridiculous that they can't possibly be true. But you know, people out there go, yeah, it happened to me as well, you know. And I don't want to bring any dispersions onto anybody or anything. But it always seems to be these hick people. You know, these out of area, you know, these people who live by themselves in the middle of a farm and whatever, you know. Not that I'm saying farmers are hicks or anything.
No.
You know,
Please don't say that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I actually live in a where I live is surrounded by farms, so you know, I'd probably be including myself in that.
I know a few people that live on a farm.
Yeah,
A couple of farms, actually. So.
I know people who should be on a farm, but it's a completely different type of farm. But yeah, so. You know, it tends to be these people who, you know, like sort of 3 teeth missing, and you know they've married their sisters, brothers, uncles, aunties, you know, or whatever. Yeah, who happen to be all the same person. But, you know, and they're telling you the story.
We're not generalising in any way, shape, or form. I'm just warning everybody now. We're not.
Yeah. So if you're sitting and you look at your wife or your husband and you relate to them other than marriage, then we're not having a go at you at all.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. So anyway, so it always then there's a recording of them as well. I mean, we live in, as I mentioned earlier on when I was on about Neil Armstrong, we live in a world where the mobile phone that we have is 32,000 times stronger and more powerful than what launched Apollo 11 and took men to the moon. And yet we can't get a proper picture. You know, it's like I'm taking a picture of me girlfriend walking down the road, snap, lots of nice pictures, alien aircraft comes along, all of a sudden, me camera decides, it's not going to work. Now, this is where conspiracy theorists come in, because what conspiracy theorists do is they then go, yeah, but that's interference from the UFO. Yes, of course it is, mate. You know, because it's not. It's the fact of you know, whatever reason you've took a rubbish photo of an alien aircraft, which, you know, when a lot of the times when you look at them, you know, they're going to be debunked straight away because of the fact of they look like a flying saucer, you know, or they look like a fly. You know, I mean, there's a photo where it looks like a rabbit on skis, but it's a bird. But it's just the perspective of it looks like a rabbit on skis, but obviously, of course, it's not. So, we've obviously heard about Dave's experience in the Schooner Hotel, and you know, we obviously talked about like sort of conspiracy theories and what have you. So, if there's anything you want to talk about, don't forget to get in touch with us. We're ready and waiting for your calls, because that's what we're all about. We want to hear what you've got to say. We could talk all night, you know.
We probably will.
Yeah, exactly. but we don't want to. We want to hear what experiences you've had, because and as I've often said, it's not about debunking anything, and it's not about proving anything, and it's not about, you know, I'm a non-believer, Dave's a believer, so at no point is Dave going to, you know, if you turn around and go, oh well, I don't believe, Dave's not going to go, well, you should. And the same as if you tell me your story, I'm not going to go, you're talking a load of rubbish.
I think again, we've discussed this quite a few times, and something I want to put across, obviously, as we are setting the stall out tonight for the paranormal experience, is that I want you to sort of, if you've got anything that you sort of, you know, want to come back to us and stuff like that, or you want to talk to us about, you know, we'll be more than happy to listen. We do want your stories. We want you to sort of call us, let us know what you've seen, and we'll talk about it. We'll go, and I think kind of come to a conclusion. Not that we don't want to debunk anybody. That's not what the show is about. It's about sharing the experiences and things like that. I think what we're going to potentially do as well is looking at the social media, because we're on Facebook as well, on Amber on Radio on Facebook. We will sort of put in sort of topics and things like that. So if there is something that you do want us to discuss, if you want to click on there, or you want to come via the website, there's a contact us on the website for the email address as well. If there's something you want to sort of read out or something like that, please get in contact with us, so we can talk about it and look at your story.
I mean, you're absolutely right, Dave. I mean, when I get told a story, I don't go, "No, you're wrong." What I do, and I have done it with Dave when he's told me stories, what I do is I look at an alternative. There's an alternative, because that's the way my mind works. My mind doesn't go straight to the paranormal. My mind goes to what it could be. And at no point am I saying it is, but that's where my mind goes. I
think for me as well, I'm sort of quite scientific in how I actually look at it. So I'm not sort of oh yeah, that's going to be something paranormal, something like that. I tend to question stuff and say, yeah, try and find a plausible explanation. And then if there's no plausible explanation, then again, it is what it is, I think, for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the way it should be. Because a lot of times there is things which can be explained away. Don't get me wrong, the world is a very, very strange place. We've been here for quite a long time now, and there's lots of things that have happened which can't be explained. Very bizarre things that have took place, which, regardless of what side of the fence you come down on, still can't be explained. It can't even be put into the paranormal side because nobody knows what it is. Now, people might say, "Oh, well, it's paranormal because it can't be put in." But the thing is, you can't just instantly go for the paranormal, and you can't instantly go for the no, it's not. And that's exactly why we have a bit of a balance. I mean, Dave and myself are friends anyway, so it's not like we just decided to get together to do this show. We've been friends for quite some time now. And we do other things outside of well, we used to do the other things outside the radio station. But now the radio station pretty much takes up our whole life, as Dave's partner will probably be able to tell you.
Yes.
But yeah, is she still listening?
Probably, yes.
or did she switch it off ages ago? But yeah, so like sort of. We've been friends for quite some time, so it's nice to be able to sit like this and share experiences, etc. I mean, as I say, I don't believe, so I always go down the no, it's not. But that doesn't mean that I'm shut off. That doesn't mean that if you get in touch with me and tell me a story where at no point could I ever decide that it's whatever, that I'm not going to go, yeah. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to run down the street going, "I'm a believer." But, and I think that's the problem. In the past, nobody has been able to tell. When I tell people that I'm a non-believer, and this is why I like Dave so much, because he didn't do this to me. But what happens is, and I'm sure you people out there who are non-believers pretty much get it as well. The first thing anybody ever says to me when I tell them I'm a non-believer is, "Here's something you won't be able to explain." And then they tell me a story which I can explain. So as of yet, nobody has ever been able to explain a story to me.
We've tried. We have tried.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. They've even held me down and beat me. No, they haven't. But yeah, so, it's one of those things where I'm not shut off. But I am a non-believer, because I haven't been proven otherwise. But that doesn't mean that I won't be proven, and that's the difference between somebody like me. I've always said there's 4 types of people. There's a believer, which is what Dave is. There's a non-believer, which is what I am. There's the people who don't care. And And when I say don't care, I don't mean that they sort of, I don't care, you know, it can be whatever. What I mean is they're not bothered whether it's real or not, you know. If it's real, it's real. If it's not, it's not, you know, and so on and so forth. And then you've got the fourth person, and which either side of the fence you're on, you have this fourth person. And the fourth person is the one who goes, yes, that's paranormal. No, that's not paranormal. And you end up arguing. Or they end up arguing. I don't end up arguing, but they end up arguing about, yes, and obviously we've mentioned with Dave's experience on social media and his private message he got. But it also happens on the other side of the fence. You know, people who are non-believers are just as bad. You know, these staunch non-believers. No. That's definitely. I sound like him off Vicar of Dibley.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. And but yeah, so you know they are both sides are out there. But just let us know. Anything that's happened or anything that you want to tell us about, it may not be paranormal. It may be something that, you know, you just want to tell us about. But, you know, still tell us. And obviously that's what we're here for. We're here to listen. I think we've talked enough for now, Dave. So I think we'll have another story from Linda.
Yes.
This one is the wood horn. So we'll play that. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about some more stuff.
Woodhorn Church. The Church of St Mary the Virgin, more commonly known as Woodhorn Church, can be found in the former mining village of Woodhorn in Ashington, the name Woodhorn meaning a wooded point of land. It is said to be the oldest church in Northumberland, dating back over 1,200 years, and includes Norman, Saxon and Gothic architecture. The church as it stands today is mainly 19th century, including all of the outer walls, the roof and the entire east side. In 1971, the church was declared redundant and became a museum containing a number of interesting relics. A 13th century stone effigy has long been considered to be that of King John of Scotland's sister-in-law, Agnes de Valence. However, it is now thought it is more likely to be a nun. There are two bells which were removed from the bell tower in 1973, dating back to the 13th and 14th centuries. Against the south wall stands the glorious Woodhorn cross, which dates back to the 11th century. It's not just inside the church where treasure is to be found. In 1906, William Watson was digging in the graveyard when he found a hoard of coins. 83 copper and 18 silver coins dating back to the 16th and 17th centuries. The graveyard contains around 400 marked graves and thousands of unmarked ones. The earliest legible graves date back to October 1717, when siblings Joseph Annat, aged 4, and Sarah Annat, aged 1, died within days of each other. There are also the graves of miners killed in accidents while working in the local mines, seafarers who met their end in the nearby North Sea, and soldiers who lost their lives in First World War. One brave soldier who died in the First World War was Tom Chalkley, and he has haunted the graveyard ever since. During the war, George Charlton, the assistant sexton, saw Tom walking through the graveyard. Tom was well known in the village, and George thought it was strange to see him, as Tom was meant to be overseas fighting for his country. He considered going over to see him, but Tom seemed preoccupied, so George left him to his thoughts. Later that day, George saw Tom's cousin and asked why Tom had come back from the war, explaining that he'd seen him in the churchyard earlier that day. Tom's cousin turned as white as a sheet and told George that the Chalkley family had received a telegram earlier that day informing them that Tom had been killed in action. The lane that runs outside the church is haunted by a phantom cyclist known as the Paddler. The identity of this spirit is unknown. He rides a black bicycle with flat handlebars with a distinctive white stripe on the rear mudguard. The cyclist is encountered at dusk and wears pitman's clothes with large, heavy boots and a cap. He has a skeletal face with empty eye sockets and a gaping lower jaw puncturing his grey, dried-up skin. His rotten, black teeth rattle inside his skull as he pedals along the road. No one knows who he is or how he died, but he's been seen on dozens of occasions, accompanied by the squeaking of his rusty bicycle wheels. I hope you enjoyed this story. It was taken from the book written by Rob Kirkup, Ghostly Northumberland, and is available at all good bookshops. It was first published in 2008 by the History Press.
So that's Linda there telling us the story of Woodhorn Church. So we've obviously been mentioning aliens and what have you. So I'm going to go through some of the conspiracy theories that are to do with space. So the first one we've mentioned already. The Apollo moon landings were faked. So apparently, well, it's not apparently, 12 NASA astronauts walked on the moon between 1969 and 1972. But what they're saying is that it never happened. And the reason why they debunk it, or the reason why they say this never happened, is because there's no stars in the sky when the moonwalkers are walking about on the photos and what have you. As we've mentioned earlier on, the flag is fluttering whilst on the surface. And there's footprints in the moon dust, and yet the lunar module, which is a lot heavier, doesn't leave tracks and what have you. So, to debunk it, the answers are quite simple. There's no stars in the sky, the same reason you don't see them on a daytime when you look up to the sky, because the light obviously washes them out, etc. And it's exactly the same when you're up on the moon. You're not going to see them because because technically you're in daylight, aren't you, on the moon? Although it's dark, you're in daylight because the sun, etc. So that obviously gets rid of the stars. We've mentioned about the flag and it having metal rods in it and what have you, because otherwise it would just be a pretty lackluster photo if they took a photo of a flag that was just hanging loosely. And the lunar module is bigger and heavier than a man, so therefore its weight is dispersed more evenly. So whereas when you're stood on the ground, your weight is directly down to your feet. It's a bit like a car. The weight of the car may be 2 ton, but there's not 2 ton on one tyre. And it's exactly the same with the lunar module. The weight is heavier than man, but it's not fully on one tyre, so therefore the tracks obviously aren't being shown. But it doesn't matter what NASA say anyway, because apparently, according to some people, NASA is a lie. NASA doesn't actually exist. So if NASA didn't exist, then we're going back to the moon landings didn't exist, because obviously if NASA aren't around, then you can't actually have a moon, the Apollo moon landings, because the actual organisation doesn't exist. Because what they're saying is all these Mars and Pluto pictures, and even the pictures of the Earth are all faked, and they're all computer generated. Apparently, that's not what Earth looks like. This is what the conspiracist is saying, that these things don't exist. We haven't seen pictures of Mars. We haven't seen pictures of Pluto. We haven't seen pictures of Venus and Jupiter and what have you. We haven't even seen pictures of Earth, because there's nothing in space, because there's no organisation that has sent anything up there. Now, I'm sure, was it Tim Peake, the astronaut from the UK who was in the International Space Station not so long ago? I'm sure he'd disagree. because, but then again, obviously these theorists would say, well, he was in on it, wasn't he? You know, and this is the problem with these theorists, is that you would get people who instantly believed that something was happening, so therefore whatever you say, they have an answer for. So if I was to say Tim Peaks would disagree, they would say, yeah, but Tim Peaks is getting paid lots of money to disagree because he's sitting in the desert somewhere.
Paddy, I tell you what it is. There's one thing flying out there when you're talking about pictures of the Earth and things like that. Because obviously, I like my photographs and stuff. You can hear the kettle in the background.
That's a good sign.
Yeah, good sign. But when people are talking about the Earth and the curvature of the Earth, etc., 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 when people are, you know,
well, ironically enough, that's my next conspiracy theory: is the flat Earth.
I just want to ask this question, Paddy. If you don't mind, I'm going to jump in and I'll jump out again, if that's all right.
No problem at all.
If there's anybody out there listening, can you get in contact with us on the Facebook page? Or if you want to email us, it's info@ambron-radio.com. If you want to email us and let me know, honestly, and explain it to us, because I can't get my head around that. I genuinely, it's one of those things, and it's not that I'm being rude. If you believe it, that's absolutely fantastic. But would you please explain it to me, because I just can't get my head around it.
Well, according to the theorists, it's actually a very popular belief, as we know, because we've heard people on about it. You know, there's people arguing on Facebook and all social media groups and what have you. And there's actually a group called the Flat Earth Society. And what they say is that there's no full movie of the Earth rotating from space. There may be photographs, but there's no. All you ever see is a, you know, two-dimensional photo. So therefore, you know, it can't be true. And that even the videos from the ISS, which orbit our planet 16 times per day, every time it takes a photo or shows a live video, it's only a two-dimensional photo. So therefore, it cannot be true. And apparently, one of the other things they say is the horizon is always eye level. Whereas if something was curved, if it had a curvature, then surely it would be below eye level or above eye level, depending on which part of the Earth you stood on. But they're actually saying that because the horizon is still eye level, then it's a straight line, so therefore it must be flat.
It just, the reason why I'm so transfixed on this one is because in my job I get to drive up and down the country quite a bit, and I tend to go down sort of London, sort of Peterborough and places like that. And when I'm driving down the all day one, for anybody that's outside of the United Kingdom, I do sincerely apologise, but like I say, I'm referring to something. As you're driving down the all day one, the amount of signs on the road where somebody's graffitied on the side of bridges saying that the Earth is flat. It's in white writing, and it just kind of, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's just no answer to it, is there? And the thing is, I mean, you know, one way of demonstrating that Earth is round is satellites constantly fall around the Earth as they are being pulled around by its planet's gravity. If it wasn't round, it wouldn't be able to rotate and therefore form a gravity. So therefore, we would all be floating off into space because we wouldn't have nothing to hold us on. If you've ever been diving or just swimming, you float unless you have some sort of weight. Whereas gravity, obviously, is what gives you the weight, and therefore that's what pulls you down to Earth, which is the reason why when you jump in the air, you come back. You don't jump in the air and, you know, fly away, as it was.
Yeah, gravity.
Yeah. But if you're still out there, and as I said, I'm not here to disprove or, you know,
Paddy,
to
honestly,
prove anything.
I would seriously love to have a conversation with somebody about it. Somebody who actually,
Well, yeah.
so you know, somebody that actually contact us and say,
it'd be nice. It would be. But Neil deGrasse Tyson, probably one of the, you know,
He's a smooth guy, him.
Yeah,
He is.
yeah. He's probably one of the, depending on your impression of him, he's probably one of the most respected.
He's awesome, I think.
What is it? Is he an astrologist or astronomist or I don't know. Whatever he is,
He's not an
anyway.
astrophysicist.
Astrophysicist, whatever he is.
We're going to have to find out now. Sorry,
you know,
if you're listening.
Yeah,
we'll
exactly.
apologise.
Exactly, Neil. If you're listening, then I apologise. But his actual statement is: the Earth looks flat because you aren't far enough away at your size. Your size isn't large enough relative to Earth to notice any curvature in it.
He's an astrophysicist and author of Science Communicator since 1996. He's been in the Frederick P. Rose Dictionary, the Hayden Planetarium, and the Rose Centre for Earth Space in New York City. That's from Wikipedia. And he's 60 years of age, bless him.
He pretty much knows what he's talking about, doesn't he?
I think so, yeah.
I mean, if you go against that guy, then you're a bit of a fool. If you but not that I'm calling flat earthers fool. I'm just saying if you stood in front of him and tried to have an argument, then I know who's pretty much going to come out on the top of that.
Paddy, if you just read the screen there, I think that says it all. One of his famous quotes is, "The good thing about science is that it's true whether you believe it or not."
There you go. Exactly. Well, it's like I mean, for those who listen to the Paddy McGough show and know me, they know that currently I'm studying crime scene science at university, and one of the things we get told is people lie, evidence doesn't. Simple as that.
True.
If you ask somebody, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I'm not being sexist, and I'm not being against women here or anything, so don't all start throwing stuff at me. But it's always been said that you should never ask a woman her age, and when you do ask a woman her age, they don't tend to tell you the truth. So they lie about their age. However, if a woman was to be, when they do this aging stuff with bones and what have you, they can tell the sort of age that a woman is. So therefore, the evidence tells you how old that woman is, but the woman herself has told you a lie. So this is exactly what I'm saying. People lie, evidence doesn't. So anyway, let's get back to some other space conspiracies. In April 2006, there's a newly discovered planet called Planet 9, and apparently we're all going to be destroyed by it. Bearing in mind, this was found in 2016, sorry, I think I said 2016, 2016, and it was supposed to be plummeting to Earth. Now we're in 2019, and unless we're all destroyed and we're all, not here.
We're talking Matrix theory here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Then, unless that's actually the case, then this Planet 9 hasn't happened. And also, according to the likes of Neil deGrasse Tyson and his mirrors, Planet 9 doesn't exist. There isn't a Planet 9. So therefore, that's the reason why it hasn't hit us. And I'm sure you've all been watching social media, especially around about the 20th of September, because apparently there was a storming of Area 51.
Paddy, I'm going to make a confession here. I did actually sign up to go to this, but
Dave,
just for the laugh.
Dave. But obviously you didn't.
No.
Well, I only didn't. I haven't said that. Where were you on the September?
No, I was on holiday, if you remember.
Yeah, exactly. You were on holiday.
Was in America, I promise.
So anyway, Area 51 was stormed. Yeah, there was a group of people in camper vans outside. Going back to what I was saying about alien people or people being abducted by aliens. Yeah, them sort of people were outside in the camper vans all, there's in Area 51. The first thing that sprung to my mind was, yeah, go ahead, storm Area 51. Because I'm sure all them guys stood along the fence with them M16s are going to just let you go straight by. It's called a secret military installation, not because it's, nobody knows about it, because everybody knows about Area 51. Once over, people go, Area 51, and other people go, well, I've never even heard of it. But now everybody's heard of Area 51. I mean, the government did at one time, the US government did at one time, deny all existence of Area 51. But now they've sort of given up and said, yeah, we do have an Area 51. And the Area 51 is about UFOs. Well, technically, depends on how you look at it. Because a UFO, if you take the word as it, or the letters as their actual stand for unidentified flying object. So therefore, if I pick up a stone and I throw it at Dave,
Ouch.
until Dave actually realises it's a stone, to him, it's a UFO. Not an alien UFO, because it's a stone that I've picked up and threw it, but it's still a UFO, because until he identifies what it is, it's an unidentified flying object, isn't it? So therefore, it's a UFO. So yes, there is UFOs around Area 51. However, what the government have said is it's about testing.
It's highly experimental
Yeah,
aircraft, isn't it?
Well, Lockheed U-2 and the A-12 Oxcart were all tested in Area 51, which are both spy planes, by the way.
Yeah, Blackbird, Blackbird?
In case you just think I'm making up some words and numbers and whatever. But they were tested at Area 51. So, yeah, when people saw these, I mean, if you saw the stealth bomber, it does look like an alien aircraft, or what is perceived to be an alien aircraft. But not to be, moving on to another one, not to be content with Planet 9, because, yeah, Planet 9 didn't happen. So, therefore, let's have Planet Nibiru, which is coming for us. No, it isn't, because that was in 2012. So, every single year, it seems to be, or at least in this case, every 4 years, so we'll probably get the next one in 2020. There's a planet about to crash with us and destroy us. But obviously,
was there not one this year as well? Was it about an asteroid or something that was going to be within? It was going to become between the Earth and the Moon.
Yeah, probably, because at the end of the day, they do happen all the time, don't they? You know, like sort of asteroids and what have you are going to destroy Earth.
I think the thing is like this the extinction level event thing. You know, the thing that wiped out the dinosaurs, that type of thing, and stuff like that. And I mean, they found that one of the craters was supposedly off the coast of Mexico, to the east of sort of Mexico, in sort of south of Florida, I think. There's like apparently the documentary I saw, they'd actually drawn a circle.
Yeah.
And it kind of fit into. I'm trying to remember the name of the sea now.
I don't know. I
can't remember. Go on.
I wasn't very good at geography. But then also on Sidonia, which is a part of the surface of the...
It's your favourite song, isn't it?
Nights of Sidonia, yeah. On Mars in Sidonia, which is like I say, a section of Mars, there's faces. Now, you can Google these. If you Google faces on Mars, there would... But then again, depends on how you think about it. See, this is where some of the conspiracy theorists trip themselves up, because the photograph was taken by NASA's Viking 1. Now, going back to what we were saying earlier on, if NASA didn't exist, how did they take these photographs? So therefore, you know, how can there be a photo of faces on Mars took by NASA that doesn't exist? And this is sometimes where the conspiracy theorists trip themselves up. But if you Google Mars, faces on Mars, you will see that what appears to be faces. But we're going back to the pareidolia, where people are seeing faces in things. You look at the moon, there's a face in the moon. There's not a face in the moon. You know, it is literally just the way the creators and the what have you are. But pareidolia, which is what we do with the first thing we do with our mind, you know, when we see something, is looking for an image of a face.
Or a pattern.
Or a pattern, yeah, exactly. Some sort of pattern. And apparently, the moon Lapidus is an alien Death Star.
Oh, this is my favourite subject.
So,
I'm a bit of a Star Wars fan.
So if you're a massive Star Wars fan, then apparently you need to go and visit Lapidus, or Lapidus, the moon of Saturn, because it's a Death Star. So it's been sitting there for all this time, done nothing. So I don't know what. Yeah, as Christine says, this pareidolia is the same with clouds.
Actually, just
do
jumping on
see
that,
shapes.
if you don't mind, jumping on that one very, very quickly.
Yes, I do mind.
There was one of the ones that I read today, and a woman had put on saying that she'd lost a baby, and she was took a photograph of the clouds, and it actually looked like a woman holding a baby. Now the story goes that a mother had gone into spirit, her mother had died, and she took that as comfort that the baby that she had lost was with her mother, and her mother was holding it up to say, "This is it."
Yeah.
And do you know what it is? It's absolutely, if that's kind of gives you the comfort, then I'm all for that. If that kind of sets your mind at rest and stuff.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And it was, there was people, again, we're talking about social media before, there was people making comments about it, which I thought were really unfair. And I kind of, it was one of those moments where you like sort of put the phone down, basically.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because I was getting quite annoyed with it. But if that gave that woman that little bit of sort of, a bit of comfort.
And I think sometimes that's you know,
it's needed.
Not taking anything away from people who believe in spirits and this, that, and that. But sometimes I think you see things because of that. I think you do see things that would bring you comfort. You know, if you lose a loved one, such as this woman who lost her child, she saw in the cloud her mother, or what she believed to be her mother, holding her dead child.
Yeah.
To say, child's all right with me, you know, crack on. And that's in her mind. That's what she did. And sometimes you hear people saying, you know, my mother's just passed, but she came to see me last night. Now, as I said, I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to say no, she didn't. But if she didn't, and your mind just decided to make that a figment of your imagination, shall we say, and you saw your mother, then fair enough. If that brings you comfort, because I'm sure I don't speak alone, because we have all lost people that we love.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've lost both my parents, you know, and devastating thing to happen. I lost my father when I was 9. You know, he was probably the first person that in my life that I remember actually dying, and it was absolutely devastating. You know, and there's not a day go by. I mean, I'm 52, as I've mentioned earlier on, and my father died when I was 9, and there's not a day from between then and now that I haven't given him a thought. My mother died when I was, I can't remember how old I was when my mother. That sounds really ignorant, but it's not. It's just she died in '96, but I can't remember how old I was in '96. Whatever I was in '96, 19. Was it 19?
I don't know.
I was born in '67. 96. Does that make me 19 or?
19, yeah.
Yeah, so I was 19 when my mother died. So 10 years between me mother and my father. So for 10 years I was brought up by my mother.
I was just going to step in with it again with the sort of spiritual thing. Obviously, there's no death from those we love, and I think as long as you've got them in your memory, and as long as you sort of, you know, you send that thought out to them, is the thought process behind it.
Absolutely.
Then you know, they're never more than a thought away, which I think it's a great deal of comfort to a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly, and as I say, there's not a day goes by when I don't think of the pair of them, and sometimes, you know, I mean, it sounds weird, but there's sometimes when I think of things that have happened that when I wish that they were here because they would know the answer, but then the answer appears.
So is that being communicated to you?
Well, exactly, and that's the thing. Is it being communicated to me, or is it just the fact of the answers happened, and it's coincidental? And that's where we sort of have the line, as it was, is where do we cross? Where do we go from coincidental to paranormal? And that's exactly what it is. Dave's going about to read something that Christine. I'm saying, David. Hopefully, Christine allows us to do this.
I hope you don't mind, Christine. I'm saying, Christine. I've known Christine for quite some time, and she lost. I know she lost her husband. I know she was absolutely, and please, thank you, Christine. She said no problems. You're a wonderful person. I'll buy you a cup of coffee next time I see you. And she's saying about comfort.
He doesn't even buy me one. I see him all the time.
Yay. When she's talking about comfort and things like that. Now, Christine sadly lost her husband, and she went to see a medium. And we're not going to mention any names, but and the medium told her that stuff that nobody knew, and that gave her a great deal of comfort. And I knew she did find that very helpful. I think it's probably the best way to put it. I'm sure she'll correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, that helped her out through her times. And I think she, you know, it's like anything else. Whenever you lose a loved one, especially when you've been with them for a number of years, it's a massive shock to the system. I think losing a parent's a different type. You know, I lost my grand.
Absolutely.
It's all. It's a horrible thing.
I mean, I was divorced in 2009, and again 10 years ago, and I live in the house that I lived in with my wife and my 2 children, and I still to this day think they're going, you know, somebody's going to walk through the door at a certain time, or somebody's going to come down the stairs and what have you. Obviously, I'm used to the fact that it's not going to happen, but there's still times when I'm sitting watching something and I'm thinking, you know, like on a night time, I'll be sitting watching the TV and I'll turn the TV down because I think they're in bed, and then I'll think, oh, you know, and so absolutely, I fully get this whole, you know, it's all about comfort. Whatever you find comfort in. If it's listening to a medium and they tell you something which, you know, they couldn't possibly know elsewhere. I mean, obviously, the question I would then ask is, how did they know? This, that, and the other. But yeah, you know, anywhere you find comfort, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, Christine's just saying there in the chat room, she's saying that she feels the same, and she still looks out for her husband.
Absolutely, yeah,
and,
absolutely.
You do understand that, you know, and like I say, there's nothing that can replace it. Nobody can actually sit in front of you and say, you know, this is going to make you feel better, because you go through the range of emotions. There's anger, there's the loss. And I mean, they've even done research, haven't they? The physical heartache from losing somebody.
I mean, there has been people died, and they've said it's been dying of a broken heart. Catherine Cook's husband died a couple of days after her, and it was said because he died of a broken heart.
The amount of stories that I've heard with stuff like that, you know, where you've had sort of like a couple married for years and years and years, and then sort of one of the partners dies, one of the partners passes away, and then it's like within a matter of days. Yeah. And it makes you think. There's definitely something there. There's definitely something more to it.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, is love physical as well as mental? You know, obviously, a love is an emotion, but is it a physical thing? Is that why? I mean, I had a dog, and I'm sure all you dog lovers out there, I'll agree with me. And sadly, he passed away a couple of years ago.
He was awesome. He was.
And I actually felt physical pain in my heart when he passed. Pain that I'd never ever felt before. I don't know if it, you know, and this sounds horrible because of the fact that I've just told you that I lost my parents, but I didn't feel this physical pain with my parents. So I don't know if it was the fact of because I was so young when they both went, that I hadn't developed properly. But the very next person, animal, whatever you want to call it, that I lost was my dog. And I actually felt physical pain in my heart on the loss of the dog. And I don't care what anybody says, they're part of your family. I mean, I've got a Jack Russell now, and he's absolutely, you know, I love him as much as I love my children. You know, and if you knew how much I love my children, I mean, I could tell you a story, but whether it's, well, I haven't said that, it's 10 to 1 in the morning, so it is quite late enough to tell you the story, but it doesn't exactly paint a very good picture of me. But anyway, we're talking about love of your children. I actually stood at the head of the bed whilst I was still, which is probably the reason why I'm not married anymore. I stood at the head of the bed not long after both my children were born, and as I say, this is definitely not going to make me sound very nice. Actually wanting my wife at the time to stop breathing so that I could have my children to myself. You know, so very, very selfish thought that I wanted somebody to pass away.
You've got to put in
so that I could then have my children to myself.
You've got to say the thing is, though, I think that's like, I mean, there's a song about, was it The Power of Love?
Yeah.
And I think that it's one of them situations where you don't understand. I think you don't know what you've got until it's gone, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
It's nice to recognise you've got that sort of strength of feeling and stuff like that, but you know, again, it's, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, definitely. But anyway, enough of bringing everybody down
getting
and
a bit
talking
deep
about
there.
death and what have you. You know.
I tell you what, Paddy, just if I just going back to what you were talking about before.
Yeah.
What I've done is I've gone into the Ambron Radio Ambron Radio Facebook page.
Yeah.
And what I've done is I've popped a little bit of UFO. I was watching the television program last weekend, it was, and this footage is of a UFO, because we were talking about UFOs before, and I thought what we'll do is we'll pop this on, and I want people to go and have a look at it, to go and see sort of what you think of it, what you could explain it as. You know, and sort of bring it up as a bit of a discussion topic for the next show, I think.
Yeah.
If that's all right.
Yeah,
so what I've done is, guys, I've put it on there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to monitor that, and I'll obviously watch out for comments and stuff like that. And what we'll do is if you do comment on it, we'll obviously read your comments out as well, providing we can, of some description. All right, but please get on our Facebook page. It's Ambron Radio. That's AMBRON Radio. Get yourself on there, like the page, and then have a look at it and see what you think of this footage. Because I think this footage, personally, is some of the best footage I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't seen it before, because I don't watch them sort of stuff. It's not that I don't watch them because you know, I just don't watch them. I've just got no interest. When I watch TV, I like to lose myself into the TV. So that's the reason why I like the likes of Star Trek, Red Dwarf, you know, that sort of stuff, because I like to lose myself into TV. Don't get me wrong, massive fan of true crime. If fan's the right word to use, it's not like I'm sitting on the sidelines with me cheerleader uniform on, you know, jumping up and down and waving my pom-poms and, you know, let's kill some more. You know, that's maybe fan is probably the wrong word, but I'm definitely an enthusiast of true crime. So them tends to be the type of stuff that I watch. So I don't tend to watch this sort of stuff, but Dave has showed me the clip, and yeah, it.
I think it's a wonderful bit.
It's very, very interesting. Now, my mind instantly went to a couple of things.
Hold on, don't say them though, Paddy. Because
I'm not going to.
Save it for
you know,
the show.
a couple of things that I thought it could be, because as I said, my mind instantly goes for this is something else, and that's exactly what my mind did, but you know, was I right? Was I wrong? Let's find out.
It's going to be interesting to see if we can get like a load of different opinions and things on it as well. So if you kind of, you know, you get 5 minutes, go across and have a look at it on the Ambron Radio page on Facebook, and leave a comment. Say hello, even. Let us know you're out there.
Yeah. It's nice. It's nice when people get in touch. I mean, there's currently 1,200 of you listening to this show, which is great. But there's only one other person in the chat room, and nobody's rang us. So either we're very, very interesting, and you just like to hear us waffling,
or it's a strange scientific experiment.
Yeah, exactly. or Planet 9 has already hit, and we're all, you know, dead, and therefore it doesn't really matter. But anyway, so this, I think we've killed off space. I think we need to move on to other things. So let's. One of the biggest conspiracy theorists, or theories, should I say, is 9/11. everybody knows what happened on September the 11th, 2001. Very, very devastating. Devastated the whole world. You know, it happened in one area, in a little, well, not a little city, but it happened in a city across the pond, and it devastated and pretty much has changed the way humans act since then. Sadly, to the detriment of some humans, the way they treat others. But it's definitely changed the face of human existence since that date. But it was all planned, because apparently there's conspiracy theories about it. And you know, it depends on what you believe. But one of the theories is the collapse of the building was not solely caused by the plane attacks, but also by explosives that were installed in the towers. The official report in the tragedy cites flaming debris from the burning skyscraper crashing into the 47th floor of Tower 7, sparking fires on several floors. The heat generated brought the tower down, including the National Institute of Standards and Technology, making it the first steel scraper in the world to collapse because of fire.
See,
so that's the official.
Paddy,
line.
I've got to be honest with you there. I mean, conspiracy theories and all that jokes aside and stuff like that. The World Trade Center building number 7. When I was on holiday at the time and I watched this.
You weren't in New York.
No, I wasn't.
It seems to be.
If I go away,
is it something? Everything seems to happen on the time you go away on holiday.
If I go away on holiday, guys, just please wait. No, seriously, I was actually.
Make sure you check where he's going.
Yeah, I was actually on holiday. I was actually in St. Lucia at the time, and I watched it live on the television, same timeline. The unfortunate thing for me was when I was there was a lady who was actually staying in the hotel who'd been married the day before, who worked at Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter.
Right.
And obviously she was watching her work colleagues, panicking, etc. Is the only way I could describe it. And the heart-wrenching cries that this woman let out was absolutely unbelievable. And it's ingrained on the back of my head. It's one of them situations, where you were when JFK was killed.
Born.
Yeah, not born yet. But you hear people talking about where when Freddie died, Elvis, etc., etc. You hear that. But the one thing for me that sticks out in my mind was, as I was sitting in this glorious, beautiful place, red hot day, watching this massive television, one of the guys sitting with us, when the building started to come down, there was just 5 or 6 guys. All the sort of women were down by the beach or down by the pool or whatever, and all the blokes were sat around there. And one of the guys was a structural engineer.
Right.
Who was sat there.
That actually brings me on to what I'm about to say, but
And when Building 7 went down, he sat there and he was sitting shaking his head, and it was like, there's no way that could have happened. There's no way that was a controlled explosion. He was utterly convinced. And I've got that. Obviously, I'm not a subject matter expert. I know nothing about buildings. If you'd seen some of the brickwork I've done in the past in gardens and stuff, you'd understand that. But this guy was adamant that this was a controlled explosion.
Well, top engineers from University of Alaska in 2016 said exactly the same. This could not have been caused by office fires. Presenting the team's findings at the Justice in Focus Synopsis in New York, it was revealed it is our preliminary conclusion based upon our work to date that fire did not produce the failure of this particular building. So this verdict obviously stoked lots of conspiracy theories about, explosions, controlled explosion, whatever. However, there is no evidence to support such a theory.
Yeah. It just, when if you're watching the footage of the building, and again, I've spoken to people. One of the guys I used to work with was actually something to do with the Marriott hotel, which was around the corner. It was quite seriously damaged when one of the towers, the main towers, went down. I think it was Tower 2. I'm not off the top of my head, but then he said that the amount of damage was actually done to the building was. He said it was amazing. It wasn't knocked flat, to be fair. Yeah. But he said, there's something about. There's something about it, isn't there? I think. I don't know. Could be
Well,
wrong.
I mean, I, you know, going back to the old non-belief and what have you, I don't believe in conspiracy theories. So no, I don't believe. I believe that Al-Qaeda actually did fly airplanes into the tower and collapsed them. But we going back to the planes, conspiracy theorists have always questioned why the US Air Force did not intercept any of the 4 hijacked planes. They claim that the then US Vice President Dick Cheney ordered the military to stand down and not to intercept.
Was there not an interesting piece of information about that, though? Apparently he couldn't give that executive order because of him. Because of the president. Sorry, I'm shooting you down.
You're obviously jumping ahead of me. Yeah, but no, it's fine. It's fine. But that's exactly what happened. The official reports claim that the highly unusual multiple hijacking with on-board violence, and he wasn't able to give that particular command because it would have meant scrambling planes to hit all 4 aircraft at the same time, and therefore that's only a presidential order that can give that. As the vice president, he can't. The only way he could actually give that order is if Bush, who was the president at the time, was actually on one of them aircraft, and that's the only way that he would have been able to give that that order. So that's exactly what you say. The attack on the Pentagon. Theorists have repeatedly questioned how an amateur pilot was able to fly a commercial plane in a complicated manoeuvre and crash it into the headquarters of the world's most powerful military 78 minutes after the first report of the possible hijacks without leaving any traces. Based on this question, they claim that instead of a Boeing 757, the Pentagon was in fact struck by a small missile or unmanned drone or even a significantly smaller aircraft. However, it has been confirmed that Flight AA77 did hit the Pentagon. The theorists shifted their focus, however. This is exactly what I was saying before about the conspiracy. You tell them something, they instantly move the goalpost. Therefore, to how the plane managed the difficult manoeuvre, with hardliners claiming the plan was actually being controlled by the Pentagon itself. So bearing in mind that you would have a guy flying an aircraft being controlled by the building that it's about to crash in.
Christine's asked a question. She said, so why didn't they get George Bush to give the command? I think he was out of...
He was... George Bush didn't actually find out about until the plane had struck the...
Was he not in a school or something?
He was reading a story in a school, and whether it was an executive decision was decided not to contact them, whatever. But he didn't actually... or the length of time it took to get the message to him or something. Obviously, I don't know. I wasn't there. But, he was told after the first plane had struck. And, if you see the footage, he did absolutely amazing, because let's face it, if somebody whispers in your ear to say an aircraft has struck a building, killing thousands of people,
he did have that look on his face.
Your natural reaction would be like, what?
He did sort of go, oh. And
but he was sitting in front of kids, and he carried on and finished the story, and then said goodbye to the kids and calmly walked out of the building. So you've got to give him more credit. Regardless of how you thought about Bush, God rest his soul. You've got to give him credit for that. So as I say, obviously the video footage did show much wreckage at the Pentagon. There was a good deal of video and still photography from the aftermath, which shows an actual plane, even though they say that there's...
Do you know, I've never seen that footage. I've never seen that picture.
Oh, really?
No.
Right.
I've never seen it.
Right, so does that mean you come down on the fence of the conspiracy theorists?
No, I'm not, but the thing is you'd imagine if an aeroplane hit the building, and I'm saying if, right? It sounds as if I've joined the conspiracy theory.
Yeah. Dave is one of them.
No, I'm not.
Get the holy water out.
No. It's... I don't know. I've never seen that footage. I have seen... I'm a bit of I love me Discovery channels and stuff like that. And I have sort of seen a number of documentaries. Obviously, they do the... We've just had the annual repeat, obviously, with it being the... anniversary.
Yeah.
And I know I've also listened to sort of various podcasts and things like that where they've discussed it through. And it's got to be said, it's kind of, there's a lot of evidence to say that there wasn't. Now, I know that's obviously the message that these guys want you to hear, and I get that. I'm not, I'm trying to be open-minded and scientific about it as possible. But I haven't actually physically seen a picture of somebody going, there's part of an aeroplane.
Yeah.
This is the wreckage that was taken away from it.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I fully get, and I fully appreciate exactly what you're saying.
It's one of those things, isn't it, where if you actually, I mean, flip it on its head, we're talking about paranormal things and stuff like that. If you physically actually saw something, that would give you the evidence.
Yeah.
Being evidential.
Exactly what I said.
Yeah.
People lie, evidence doesn't. So if you've never seen it, you're just taking somebody's word that there was an aircraft in that. I mean, I have actually seen a photograph of a plane in the Pentagon, but that I'm going to come on to something later on, which sort of, blows my explanation out of the water.
Okay.
So anyway, the fourth plane, United Airlines Flight 93, was actually a crash site. So it was already a crashed plane. So it wasn't actually, the plane didn't crash where it said it crashed. The actual crash had already happened, and aircraft debris was already in that place.
Is this the one where there's a conspiracy theory about the fact that they thought that everybody was actually bought off the aircraft, and there was the telephone calls?
Well, there's that, but there's also the claim that instead of it actually crashing, it was disintegrated by a missile.
Right. Okay.
So that's the reason why there is no United Flight 93. This has been refuted by official photography that show the full wreckage and recording of the pilot's voice confirmed that there had been a passenger involved when hijackers had attempted to take over the aircraft. Because this is the one, obviously, where the...
But they're on the telephone to their loved ones.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so, as I was saying before, I have seen a photograph. You're saying you haven't seen a photograph of the Pentagon. I have actually seen the photograph. However, this is what conspiracy theorists would say to me because of the fact that I've seen the photograph. The planes were all holograms.
Oh, right, okay.
None of the planes actually existed. Now, among the most absurd claims made by conspiracy include the planes were not real. They suggest that the planes that hit the Twin Towers and the Pentagon were missiles surrounded by holograms that were made to appear as planes. So therefore, the missile that hit the Pentagon was actually a hologram.
There is, because I had heard or I had read somewhere, I think I was actually read it, and somebody was actually saying that one of the aircraft had strange, I think it was a bulge on the fuselage or something like that.
Yeah.
So the fuselage was different to a standard normal aircraft, and that was, I believe, was the second aircraft that hit the tower, the second tower or first tower. I can't remember which tower it was, but anyway, they said that it wasn't a standard aircraft, and that they thought it might have been a remote control one. That's one of the theories that I'd actually seen. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I mean, the final theory is that it was an insurance scam. One theory revolves around New York property tycoon Larry Silverstein, who purchased the entire complex on a 9-year lease 6 months prior to the attacks. The deal was worth $124 million, or £96, but he is said to have walked away with $4.5 billion, or £3.2 billion, after taking out a huge insurance claim following the tragedy.
Now, sorry, Paddy, just interrupting there. Is this not got anything to do with the one where there was supposedly the gold that was actually in? There was actually the gold in the. It was actually in the building. I think it was. Somebody had said there was loads of gold and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We've got a caller.
Apparently, we've got a caller. So let's hear who it is. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. And who might this be?
It's Christine.
Hello, Christine.
Hello. I thought I'd give you a ring.
Yeah, you're sick of typing.
On here.
Yeah, your fingers must be burning. You've been typing away like mad. Fantastic. Well done.
No problem.
So what are you going to tell us about?
I'm not coming to tell you anything. I'm just coming to see if anybody out there wants to join with.
Well,
And
exactly.
ring you
I mean,
and talk to you.
there's plenty of people out there because currently we have like 1,100 people listening. But, I think they're all shy. Either that or they're all just come in from the night out on a Friday night and they just want to listen to us guys waffling.
It's either
Well, I'm usually shy, but I've rang.
No,
I know,
exactly,
Christine,
yeah.
but honestly, it's we'll send you $5 in the post.
Yeah.
So you don't want-
or buy carrier
So come
pigeon.
on, you guys out there, get ringing.
Yes, definitely.
That's
Thank you very
wonderful.
much, Christine.
No problem.
Yeah, we'll send
I'll
the
go
$5
back
by
to
carrier
typing
pigeon.
now.
All right, then,
Right.
get some ice for your
Okay.
fingers. You're doing a
Right,
grand
okay,
job.
Cheers. See you later.
See you
Cheers.
later.
Right,
Bye.
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 So as Christine says, come on, guys, get your fingers working and get dialing them.
I'll tell you what
them numbers.
Tell you what we'll do, Paddy. We'll give you because I mean we're just inside the last hour now. So what we're going to do is we'll give you the website. All right. So it's ambronradio.webradiosite.com. Okay. You can join us on Facebook. We've got the Facebook page open there. That's Ambron Radio, and the telephone number is 01207 795 005. If you want to text us, just even say hello. Just let us know that you're listening, where you are. We'll give you a shout. Okay, it's 60777, and you start your text off with 89MX4. All right, get in contact with us, and
I feel a right twit.
oh, bless you, Christine. No, not at all. You wanted
to
it.
twit is what I feel.
We'll have you back on again, Christine. Don't worry. Next time we'll have you in the studio, I think. But never mind.
You'll have to be part of the conversation next time.
She's probably just going to shut her computer off now, but never mind.
exactly,
But please,
yeah.
guys, come on, guys. We're friendly. We're not going to bite. Get in contact with us.
So that's 9/11 there. Now we're going to probably the most controversial conspiracy theory out of there. The McCanns. Did the McCanns murder their child? Now, I'm a firm believer that they didn't. Yes, what happened, they shouldn't have. They shouldn't have left their child alone, etc. But I don't believe they actually murdered them. Now, I know people are now chucking stuff at the computer because I know this is a very passionate subject. But again, going back to what I was saying, people lie, evidence doesn't. The evidence does not point towards the McCanns committing the crime. Now, I know there's a story or a post or something going around where this woman lists all these things. I think it's like 40 odd different things, and it's to do with the questions that were asked, the dogs, the blood found in the room, and this, that, and the other. The DNA that was found in the car that they didn't hire until days after Madeleine went missing, and this, that, and the other. And it's really sad. I mean, obviously the young girl went missing, and, it's devastating. And, poor Kate and Jerry, yeah, they're not the most likeable people. I fully get that. But, they've lost the child, and people are now pointing fingers at them. Now, if they are guilty, then let's get them caught, let's get them locked up. That's exactly what we want. But I personally, and the evidence does not point towards their guilt. So let's have a look at what people are saying. So just to, if you've been living under a rock for the last 20 years, just to fill you in on what actually happened. Back in 2007, the McCanns went on holiday to Portugal. Is it Praia da Luz? Is that how you actually say it? Or Praia da Luz, or whatever?
I don't know.
It's in Portugal.
You're asking the wrong guy there.
But they went on holiday in May of 2007. But on the 3rd of May, the young girl went missing. While her mum and dad, Kate and Jerry McCann, enjoyed dinner with friends at a nearby ocean club, both Kate and Jerry had checked on Madeleine and the twins, because they're all in the same room, every half an hour. But then a friend went to check at them at 9:30, but he didn't actually go into the room. He just listened at the bedroom door. And now, I don't know what you can hear from a sleeping child, but apparently he just listened at the door. But it's unclear when exactly Maddie went missing. They believe it was somewhere between 9 and 9:15, but she wasn't actually discovered missing till 10 p.m. So I don't know how they actually worked out that she went missing at 9, or between 9 and 9:15, if her parents didn't. So that means this guy, Matthew Oldfield, who checked on them at 9:30, according to what people are saying about her going missing between 9 and 9:15, she was already missing. So he obviously did a very good job of checking up on her, didn't he?
I've see this. I know there's umpteen theories out there about this, and I know you're going through them and stuff like that. But I mean, for me, it's kind of. I mean, I remember when we were kids, we were sort of. I think my mum and dad learned quite at an early age, really. To be fair, because I remember having a holiday with me mum and dad, my nan and granddad, before my sister arrived, and then. It used to be my mum and dad we used to go off on holiday by themselves and leave us with my grandparents and stuff. And
Whoa, should you be releasing this?
No, I loved it. It was great. We had 2 weeks down in Birmingham, but no, we were kind of kept up late, and I can remember, sort of, as a young kid, I can't really. I think we were somewhere in Yugoslavia or somewhere as it was at the time, and I can remember I fell asleep in the restaurant and woke up in my bed in the morning. Because obviously that magical carpet ride that you get,
yeah, exactly.
Dad carries you back.
Regardless of where you fall asleep, you always end up in your bedroom, don't you?
Yeah, that's it. As a kid, anyway.
I was going to say,
yeah.
when I fall asleep on the settee, I wake up on the settee.
Or sometimes on the floor. But
well, yeah.
But
more times than not.
More times than not. But no, it's quite. For me, this is quite a weird one because it's your kids, and for me, yeah, okay, you might want to go out for a romantic meal and stuff like that, and
But it wasn't even a romantic meal, was it? It was a meal with friends, wasn't it? So it wasn't even like him treating her to an anniversary dinner or something. It was just a group of friends who went out for a meal.
I think possibly the last, quite a few holidays that I've actually been on and stuff like that. I mean, not so much the last one I've been on, but before that, when you've actually seen people and they've had the kids up, it's been like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah. Which is exactly the time that she's went missing.
Yeah, and you sort of see them and they're sort of sitting in the restaurant, sort of having the, eyes open, quite as you.
Yeah, sitting.
Doing the adult thing.
I've obviously been a parent of 2 children. I've been there myself. Not so much the 9:30, 10 o'clock, because I never, when we went on holiday with the kids, we used to go to the family bars and what have you, and we'd maybe have a drink, but that was it. Then we'd go, because at the end of the day, I was on holiday with my children. I wasn't on holiday with anybody else, so therefore I spent most of the holiday with my children. So if we went to the family bar, it was to see, whatever act was on at the time. But once we'd had, a drink, and we then went back to the chalet or caravan or whatever we were stopping in, and carried on with our holiday. I mean, many a night, I hate the game bingo, but there's many a night we played bingo, and I was the caller because of the fact that I hate playing bingo.
I remember the last family holiday that I went on with my mum and dad. I think I was about 16, or just coming up 16 at the time,
right.
And they had a man-o-man competition, and I paired off with this girl who I'd never met before.
Well, it was a man-on-man competition. You paired off with a girl.
Yeah, you had right. That sounded so weird, but no, there was a bit of a competition. See, what you had to do is you had to drink 2 pints of lager,
right,
or 2 pints of beer, and then what you had
to be some girl like
she
you.
Was, yeah. God, I hope she's not listening. Then what you had to do is
should be ringing up.
Yeah, the phone's going to go.
Oh, yeah.
Put your and obviously put your head on the pole and you spin round 3 times, and then you had to run down, and obviously you wipe the bar out, because you couldn't stand up straight and stuff. And had this competition thing going and stuff like that. And I remember that was probably the 3rd or 4th night into the holiday, and I met up with this group of lads, and we kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
And I think the only time I actually turned up in the second week was to go and ask my dad for some more spending money, because I'd blown me savings. Yeah. On beer. It was a beat.
Which is, I always remember my kids, they would have their spending money. But it would always be like, wherever we went, it was always like,
You've got to try
it. I want that, but I've left me money in the chalet, or I've left me money in the caravan, or I've left me money at the hotel. And so, if you buy that for me, I'll give you the money when we get back.
Yeah.
Guess who has never received any of that money? Yeah,
yes.
Exactly. Definitely.
I hope they're listening.
Well,
Christine says yes, they do.
Exactly. So anyway, getting back to
sidetrack.
That's right, it's fine. Getting back to... So, yeah, were the parents right or wrong in leaving their children? Well, yeah, they were wrong because you're on holiday with your children, but they put in all what they believed to be safeguards. You know, go and check on the children every now and again. The question is, did they go and check on the children when they say they did? We will never know. You know, there's no evidence to say they didn't. There's no evidence to say they did. How many times have they done it in the past? How many times have they left Madeline by herself whilst they went off with their friends? Nobody will ever know because nobody's ever going to say it. So yeah, you could say, you know, what they did was wrong. But how many times did they do it, or how many parents do it and get away with it? That's, you know, the problem. But anyway, some of the theories are that it was due to a burglary gone wrong. So somebody broke into, you know, people are on holiday, so they know people have, like, took, you know, money with them, etc. And so somebody broke in whilst they were rummaging around. They'd woke Madeline up, and obviously they then had to deal with a screaming child.
Do you not think, though, that if let's do, because there was obviously there's the twins there as well, if I remember correctly, there's the twins. So obviously, if they woke the little one up and she started screaming, would that not have woke the twins up and started chaos?
So. You would have thought so, which is exactly what the. But then again, you know, going back to the theorists and how they would change it, you know, Madeline's not even in the room anymore. She's come out of the room because she's heard a noise and thinking that it's her parents. And I sound like a theorist now because I'm actually given an excuse of why it doesn't work the children.
It's good to explain it, though, isn't it?
You know, like sort of, she goes into the room, sees who's not her dad, rummaging around in the drawers, you know, stealing stuff and what have you, and starts to scream. She's not in the room with the kids anymore, so therefore, you know, it doesn't wake the twins up. And this was actually the route that Scotland Yard went down, was that it was a bungle burglary. And that's what they based their whole case on. Obviously, you know, it never came to fruition. But the Portuguese police, they actually dismissed that theory. They said that wasn't what had happened. So there's got to be some conflict. If Scotland Yard is saying that this is what happened and the Portuguese police are saying, no, this isn't what happened, then there's got to be something adrift.
Because there was no CCTV, was there?
Well,
or the CCTV wasn't working. Then there was the guy supposedly. I don't know what I'm stepping on you.
Yeah, you probably are.
Oh, okay.
The child trafficker, is that what you're on about?
No.
That's right. Sorry.
No. Go on. I'll let you go off, and then if
a heartbreaking theory is that she was taken and kept alive by child traffickers who could have potentially sold her desperate couples, or sold her to desperate couples who wanted children.
Because was there not a bit of news about that where supposedly she'd been. They'd had a photograph of a kid that looked suspiciously like her, and it was somewhere from, I don't know, Middle East or somewhere like that. Yeah.
Well, the thing was, I mean, the where they are was 90 minutes away from the border.
Yeah.
Now, if you go back to thinking that it took them an hour to discover she was missing, she was now 30 minutes away from the border.
Yeah.
When they discovered she was missing. So regardless of what happened, unless they had a aeroplane or anything like that, it wouldn't actually. She was out of the country and away before they'd even realise.
There was a little bit behind that theory as well, where apparently somebody had sort of seen her and they'd sort of.
But people are
tipped the
saying
wink
her all the time on that.
Yeah,
I mean, there was a woman on social media actually thought she was, but then it turned out, how could it possibly be? Because of her age and this, that, and the other.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, there was a woman actually.
There's a whole new conspiracy theory there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but then, as I mentioned earlier, there's many people actually believe that that the parents were guilty, that they'd actually, you know, but as I mentioned, there is yet to be any forensic evidence linking the McCanns to the disappearance of their daughter.
But there wasn't any forensic evidence anyway, was there? Because
the forensic evidence was there was blood in the apartment, which could have come from anybody.
Yeah, but you could have cut your finger though, couldn't you?
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It could have, nosebleed, because apparently she had prolific nosebleeder or something.
Most kids do. I think.
Well, exactly. There was a DNA found in the car, which was the hire car.
Was that the McCann's car itself?
But it was what you call it. It was I can't remember the correct phrasing for it at the moment, which is really bad considering that I'm studying at university. But there's an actual correct phrase for it. And basically what they said was it could have come from any of the McCanns.
Because of the family link.
Yeah,
Yeah, DNA.
Familiarity. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, I knew it. I knew they knew the word. But yeah, so therefore, so there isn't any. So there was forensic evidence, but no. In the corpse dogs or the whatever they call them, the cadaver dog.
Cadaver. Cadaver.
Yeah, that's the one.
Cadaver dogs. Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, they
Who's doing this course?
Yeah, exactly. They smell death, but it's not difficult to smell because it's not necessarily. And plus, a dog, when they brought the dogs in, the smell of death wouldn't have been around because it doesn't last that long. It lasts about 24 hours, and it was about 2 or 3 days after the event that they brought the dogs in, so the dogs wouldn't have been able to smell it anyway.
Yeah.
So if they did smell something, it had nothing to do with the case. So yeah. Another one is it was a freak accident that she woke up in the middle of the night. Her parents weren't there, so she went looking for her parents and had an accident. Whether she fell in the sea or whatever. But that's another theory, is that she had an accident, which, to be honest, is probably the most realistic one out of the lot. That she had an accident and couldn't be found.
That or the fact that she was stolen to order, I think it's probably. I think the two that I would kind of go with, you know what I mean? But then you would have thought if she'd kind of had an accident that they would have actually found some evidence outside the flat, outside the holiday home, which they didn't.
It says though, you could take a 10-minute drive from where they live, or where they were, and you can look down a 100-foot drop.
Is that right?
Yeah. So therefore, obviously, accidents can't happen.
Oh yeah,
do happen. And as I say, I mean, personally, I think I would come down on that being an actual.
I mean, let's face it. If a kid's going to find trouble, they'll find trouble. That's what.
Oh, well, you've got to look no further than what do you call it?
Yeah.
The kid who climbed in with the gorilla. You look at a gorilla and you don't go, oh, I'm going to crawl in with that gorilla. Yeah. But a kid doesn't think like that, does it? A kid will go, oh, it's a gorilla. I want to go and play with that monkey. And obviously we know what happened. So anyway, that's the McCanns. So we're going to take a short break. We're going to play another Linda story of Creswell Towers.
Linda's Grisly Tales.
Linda's Grisly Tales. Sorry. Yeah, we're going to play another Lindsay's
Linda.
Linda.
It's getting to that time of night, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. We've got 33 minutes left. But yeah, we're going to play the Creswell Towers story. Just a short story, but it gives us enough time to have a breather, and then we're going to come back and we're going to finish off the show with probably the weirdest conspiracy theory that's out there. So here we go.
Christine's asking if you're getting tired.
Yeah, probably more than likely. Yeah. Well, it is nearly.
He's had 9 cups of coffee, Christine.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It's not so much the tired; it's the toilet that I need.
He's got to go to the loo.
So anyway,
happens at his age.
Yeah. So here we go. Linda and her Creswell Towers story.
Creswell Tower. Creswell Tower, dating back to the 13th century, stands in the picturesque village of the same name. It stands in sight of Druridge Bay, a 7-mile long stretch of beach and sand dunes. The tower was formerly the seat of the Creswell family, one of the oldest families in Northumberland. In the 18th century, a mansion house was built adjoining the tower. Less than 100 years later, the house was destroyed, but to this day the roof groove can still be seen on the north wall of the tower. In 1821, Creswell Hall was built to the west of the tower. However, this was demolished in 1937. The tower now stands alone in woodland next to a caravan park named after the historic building. It is well preserved from the outside. and the inside consists of the stone byre on the ground floor and 2 upper floors accessible by a spiral staircase. A sad story associated with the tower tells how the beautiful daughter of the family living at the tower had fallen in love with a young Danish prince. The Viking raids on England had ended a number of years earlier, and a lot of the Danes had decided to stay in England and set up home, particularly in the northeast. A large number of Viking raids on Northumberland had started at Drawridge Bay, as it was a long, unprotected stretch of coast, and Creswell was under constant attack. The beautiful girl's family were unforgiving and hated the idea of her having anything to do with someone who they still considered their enemy. The girl told her family of plans to marry the prince, and they were absolutely furious. The wedding plans were made with the Danish prince paying his fiancée's family a generous dowry, and the couple couldn't have been happier. They were to be wed outside Creswell Tower, and on the day of the wedding, a huge crowd of locals gathered. The locals had taken to the Danish prince, and spirits were high in the village. The bride waited patiently at the top of the tower, looking out towards Drawridge Bay for her husband-to-be to arrive. She didn't have to wait long as she saw a horse approaching along the beach. However, her joy turned to horror in an instant as she saw her 3 brothers emerge from the sand dunes, unaware their sister was watching, and attacked the prince. One of the brothers stabbed him with a spear, pushing the point upwards into his heart. The prince slumped forward in his saddle as the horse galloped towards the tower. He fell from the horse, and his ankle got caught up in a rope. The crowd cheered as the horse approached, but as the horse got closer, the crowd were horrified to see the prince being dragged along behind his horse. Some of the onlookers managed to calm the horse down and free the prince from the rope. He was dead. The tragic news was shouted up to the top of the tower, and the horrified girl was beside herself with grief. Whether she fainted or decided she couldn't face life without the man she loved is unknown, but she fell from the top of the tower to her death. These days, the tower is a roofless ruin, covered in ivy and surrounded by weeds and woodland. It is said that to this very day the girl's ghostly form can occasionally still be seen gazing out to sea from the tower roof. The spirit of the Danish prince is not seen, but is often heard, a single blood-curdling scream of agony coming from the sand dunes at Drawridge Bay, followed by the pounding of horses' hooves. Another less well-known variation of the above story is set in more modern times, the mid-18th century. A pretty young lady was stood atop Creswell Tower when she witnessed her 2 brothers murder her boyfriend near the lifeboat shelter, which is now a car park. As a result, she went insane and died shortly afterwards. Her restless spirit now roams the village, wandering the streets, going into gardens and knocking on and looking through the windows. Screams have been heard across the fields, described by those who've heard them as being almost human and not of this world. Drawridge Bay, which actually means the Bay of the Druids, is said to be haunted by a witch who met her end in the wild, untamed sea at the bay. She was caught practicing witchcraft one Halloween night at Seaton Delaval, a village 14 miles south of Drawridge Bay, and was sentenced to be burned at the stake. As she was being tied to the burning post and wood faggots placed at her feet, she begged the locals her one last request. She asked to be brought 2 unused bowls made from hazelwood and some water to cleanse her feet. It was agreed that this seemed a harmless enough request, and she was simply delaying her own death. The bowls were brought to her, and she was untied. As she put her feet into the bowls, the locals were stunned and horrified to see the witch rise high up into the moonlit sky, her laughter filling the air. She headed north, but as she flew over Drawridge Bay, one of the bowls fell from her foot, and the witch fell from the sky into the crushing waves, where the sea took her life. People have reported seeing a figure walking out of the sea at dusk, then vanish before their very eyes. I hope you enjoyed this story. It was taken from the book written by Rob Kirkup, Ghostly Northumberland, and is available at all good bookshops. It was first published in 2008 by the History Press.
So there we go. There's Linda and her grisly tales. So as I say, we've got half an hour left. Well, 25 minutes left. So if you want to call us, it's 01207 795 005. Or if you just want to send us a text, 60777. But you must start your text with 89MX4. And just let us know. I mean, we were going to discuss loads, but we seem to haven't been able to get away from the conspiracy theories. But that's fine, because we have more shows, which obviously we'll advertise. So that's another reason why you should
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
So yeah, so just look for Amber Radio on any of them, and you'll be able to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. So there you go. So we're gonna finish off tonight with which I think is the weirdest conspiracy theory of all time. And we'll start off. There's actually two parts to this. So we'll start off with the one that probably a lot of people have heard of, and it's that Paul McCartney is dead. Back in 1960, was it 66 that he had an accident, or was it 67 that he had an accident?
Was it supposed to be a car accident?
Yeah, it was early 1967. There was a rumour circulated in London that Paul McCartney had been killed in a traffic accident while driving along the M1. Well, if he drove along the M1, I'm surprised.
Yeah.
On January the 7th. Apparently he was decapitated.
They've had photographs, haven't they, where they've actually showed photographs of supposed, for obviously on the conspiracy sites and stuff.
Yeah.
They've actually shown the photographs, and I found this quite interesting. Obviously, having an interest in photography, and they showed you, and it's kind of. It's a really interesting photo. Again, I haven't seen the original, so you don't know whether they've been manipulated or not. But there is a distinct difference between obviously the information they're supplying. Would lead you to believe.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
He was replaced because obviously due to the success of the Beatles, and it was the early days and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know whether my mum's listening, but because she's a huge Beatles fan.
Yeah.
And you know, I believe she used to go and see them back in the day, you know. But there was a kind of a distinct difference between the two, on the theories that I've read about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of them is the Abbey Road cover, which is 50-year-old this year. And it's the way they're walking across the zebra crossing. The first one is John, who's dressed all in white, and they say that represents an angel. Ringo then follows all in black, so therefore he represents the Undertaker. Right at the back is George, and he's all in denim, but he represents the gravedigger. But in amongst them is Paul, and he's dressed as a corpse, shall we say? He's got no shoes on. He's out of step with them, and he's wearing obviously,
I've never heard this.
Yeah.
I've never heard it.
Yeah, but that's apparently what the Abbey Road. So obviously, if Paul's dead and he's been replaced, then the person that they replaced him with, is obviously the corpse. Also, and this is where conspiracy theorists really, really dig deep.
All right, go on.
If you look at the Volkswagen Beetle,
it's a look on his face here. I can tell something's coming.
If you look at the Volkswagen Beetle on the photograph of the Abbey Road cover, so. If you've got the album, look at the Abbey Road cover. If you haven't, Google Abbey Road LP
right,
cover.
Hold on, I'm gonna have a go here. What is it? So hold on, we'll get it up in the studio.
To the left of the picture, there's a white or cream VW Beetle.
Right, hold on, here we go. That one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you zoom in on the registration number of the beetle.
Oh, that's not a good photograph to do that too. Hold on, let's have a... Go on then, Paddy, tell us what it's...
If you zoom in on the registration number of the beetle, bearing in mind it's a beetle to start off with,
Yeah.
the Volkswagen beetle.
High resolution.
So, you know,
Yeah.
if you look at the registration, part of the registration is 28IF.
Right, hold on, I'm struggling to do that. Oh, there we go. Oh. I can't see that. It's too...
But yeah,
Too
so
pixelated.
part of it is 28IF. So if you get a chance to have a look at it, when the Abbey Road cover photograph was taken, was, as I said, 50 years ago, 1969. How old do you think Paul McCartney was in 1969?
Oh, go on, 28?
28. So he would have been 28 if he was alive. 28IF.
Wow.
So,
Never heard that one.
so this is what I'm saying. Conspiracy theorists literally look at everything. So yeah.
Well, you've got to... I mean, the thing is, if you're going to do a good conspiracy theory, you've got to have
Well,
really
exactly,
good evidence and
exactly.
stuff like that, haven't you? I mean,
Yeah.
you've got to make it kind of... Well, I haven't said that. I have heard some corkers where you,
Yeah.
you do just laugh and go, yeah, right, okay, fair enough.
So yeah, so there's that, you know. Apparently, there's a song. Where's it at? I did read about this. Is it Strawberry Fields? And it ends with the line, something along the lines of "I buried Paul." John Lennon says, "I buried Paul," or something along them lines. Apparently, there's lots of songs that stuff appear where it sort of points towards Paul McCartney apparently not being with us anymore.
I'm just looking at that picture there now of them crossing the road.
Yeah.
Paul hasn't got any shoes on.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. He's supposed to be dressed as a corpse because obviously, you know, he's dead. And therefore, you've got the angel in the front with John Lennon. You've got the Undertaker as Ringo Starr.
Yeah.
You've then got Paul, who's meant to be the corpse. And then you've got
Some really
George
funky
Harrison.
denims there.
Well, George Harrison is meant to be... So basically, you know, John's come to take the spirit away. Ringo's burying Paul, who's the corpse. And then George is coming along to fill the grave in. Yep.
Wow.
And that's exactly how it... You know, so people do look at things and come up with some weird and wonderful things. Now, Revolution 9... so if I play this, will it come through?
We should do.
Right.
Well, on where are we?
Just there's a couple of clips from the song Revolution 9. So this is what is played if you play it forward.
Number 9. I don't think that's not very good.
No, it's not.
Tell you what it is, Paddy. We'll try it on. Try it on another computer. If you just give us 2 seconds, we'll set that up on.
Yeah. So basically, what's happening is the guy is saying number 9.
I can hear the number 9. Just.
Yeah.
Is that it there? That one. Is that the page there?
Yes, I believe it is. Yes. If you go down, there's a.
Right.
So yeah, so the guy is saying 9 or number 9. So
we'll try.
we'll see if
Should
you
we
can
try
see if
that
you
again?
can.
I'm just going to.
Yeah, see if you can hear it a bit more clearer now.
Number 9.
Yeah,
Number
that's a lot clearer.
9. Number 9. Number 9. Number 9. Number 9. Number 9.
And as we all know, if you want to hear a message, you play it backwards.
Right. Okay. That's that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Underman. 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 Underman.
And what he's actually saying, if you didn't hear it, is turn me on, dead man. Or at least that's what they're saying that he's saying.
Right. I tell you what, Paddy. Can we listen to that again?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna
of
see.
course.
Hold on. Let's have a bit fiddle here with the.
Underman. 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 Underman.
I'm getting the dead man, but I'm not getting the turn me on bit.
Well, that's the dead man. Yeah, so...
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. You know, clutching at straws. I mean, the first question I've got to ask is, who actually decides to play their records backwards?
Well, it wasn't. I know, but there was a bit of a thing when I was a kid.
Well, the scratching and all
No,
that. Yeah,
it was
yeah.
was it Iron Maiden or something? Oh, I can't remember. There was Alice Cooper or something like that. It was kind of, you had to play it backwards, and there was a hidden message. And
Yeah.
one of the Queen tracks had a hidden message in the back.
What year was that when you were young?
That was the 80s.
80s, exactly.
Mid-80s.
We're talking 20 years earlier than that,
Oh.
when they've come up with this theory. So, yeah. So, obviously, the Paul is dead theory is out there.
That's
and
a little bit weird. That
obviously, you know, the rebuttal is that on 21st of October 1969, the Beatles press office again issued statements denying the rumour, deeming it a load of old rubbish, and saying that the story has been circulating for about 2 years. We get letters from all sorts of nuts, but Paul is still very much with us. On the 24th of October, BBC radio reporter Chris Drake was granted an interview with McCartney at his farm. McCartney said that the speculation was understandable given that he normally did an interview a week to ensure he remained in the news, but as he sort of gone away into the farm just to sort of like spend some time with his wife and child, you know, Linda and what's his daughter called?
Stella McCartney.
Yeah, so you know, he'd obviously like sort of gone off into spend more time with them. That was the reason why he'd never. Following the publication of the article and the photo in the Life magazine issued on the 7th of November, the rumour started to decline. In the interview, McCartney was quoted as saying, "Perhaps the rumour started because I haven't been much in the press lately. I have done enough press for a lifetime and don't have anything to say these days. I'm happy to be with my family and will work when I work. I was switched on for 10 years and I never switched off. Now I'm switching off whenever I can. I'd rather be a little less famous these days."
Fair play to the guy. I mean, you know, if that's the kind of the thing is, I was actually, I was listening to a news story today, to do with Beyonce, with her, she's trademarked her daughter's name to Blue Ivy or something.
Well, probably.
Something like that. I was listening. It was something.
They're all doing weird stuff, aren't they?
I was listening to it on the radio.
I mean, it's like O.J. Simpson tried to copyright O.J.
Oh yeah, okay. But no, they had this. They were talking about it, and then the guys who were talking about it on the radio were actually then started talking about Stella McCartney, and they were saying about how Dad bankrolled her business.
Yeah.
But how now she's actually incredibly successful, and they were actually asking the question whether about being a child of a superstar.
Yeah. Right.
And does that give you the entitlement? Does that give you, you know?
Yeah.
And,
It's got to help, hasn't it?
Well, I mean, she's had a good kickstart.
If her father's bankrolling that business, then it's got to help, hasn't it?
Well, but I think the thing is, at the end of the day, though, she's actually she stood up on her own right. Stella, to be fair, I mean, yes, maybe she did have a little bit of help from her dad. I think we all get a little bit of help from our parents and stuff. But it's quite interesting. You know,
definitely.
With the names and things.
But you know, apparently, Paul's not dead. Even conspiracy theorists say this.
All right.
The reason Paul isn't dead, because he never existed in the first place.
Right, okay.
Because apparently the Beatles never existed. There's an actual premise that the Beatles never existed.
I hope my mum's not listening.
And what all that money I've spent on all them records and they don't even exist.
She'll be...
But so Christine could hear the turn me on, but not the dead man bit. Whereas you could hear the dead man bit, but not
Sorry,
the turn me
Christine,
on.
I didn't have that page up at the time, but I got the dead man bit, but I couldn't get the...
So there, between the two of you, you heard the full message.
There we go. Team effort, I love it.
So this is the premise. This is not a joke. On this site, because there is an actual site, the BeatlesNeverExisted.com. And it's like, this site is here to expose the actions of those who exploited these young men and defrauded us, their fans. It is defend the honour of everyone involved who did not take part in it willingly. It has become apparent to us in this extensive and painstaking research that there were never just 4 individual people known as John, Paul, George and Ringo, who comprised one rock and roll band known as the Beatles and rose to fame as the world's first supergroup. For all intents and purposes, as far as we can tell, no such group existed. We're here to explore whether the original individuals themselves ever existed. So, as I say, Paul can't be dead because he didn't exist. And if so, what may have happened to them and by whom?
Paddy's just brought a photograph up in the studio here. And I'm looking at it, and that is actually one of the photographs that I've seen, which was evidence for Paul actually dying and being replaced by a doppelganger, I think was the terminology used in the bit that I read.
Yeah.
But they're saying there's differences between his ears, these facial expressions, eyebrow thickness, eye sockets, etc. Eyes are closer together, etc. And it's quite an interesting. It's an interesting theory, put it that way.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
it's interesting bedtime
without
reading.
a shadow of doubt. I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it? I mean, there's plenty of pictures on this site which it said this is this and this that and the other. But there's lots of different things. Clones is one of the things. They reckon that they were cloned. So. Fake Paul is apparently what they call him.
Fake Paul.
Yeah.
Thanks, Christine.
Yeah. So, but
Excellent.
they say they're clones, but if you know what a clone is, they can't be. Because what they're saying is, obviously, Paul's died, so he's been replaced by a clone. Now, a clone is something that's born of something. You remember Dolly the sheep, who was cloned. But she came from an embryo.
Mm-hmm.
So she came as a lamb and then grew up to be a sheep.
I tell you what I have watched recently, which was on Netflix. It's a series called Black Mirror. I don't know whether you've heard of it.
I've
Paddy.
heard of it, yes. Never seen it, but I have heard of it.
There's a one with Miley Cyrus on it, and she's playing a pop singer who's it's a bit of a sort of Britney Spears type sort of Disney sort of that pop princess style.
Yeah.
And it's sort of showing that, and then it's an evil stepmother and stuff, and she's putting her on drugs, and she's got her under control because she decides to rebel and stuff, and then she's in a life support machine, and they keep her artificially, and it's kind of that conspiracy theory sort of thing going on, and sort of it was quite an interesting.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's the thing. It is interesting, isn't it? It's you do hear things, and they are quite interesting. I mean, as you say,
people's minds.
You look at photographs. Now, I would look at a photograph of me, and I'd look at a photograph of me when I was 20. And there's probably some distinctions apart from the fact that I had hair.
Yeah, that's true. I've seen that one.
There will be distinctions and there will be differences. Because people age, their facial features change to not like excessively, so that you don't look like who you were, but your skin wrinkles or stretches or things that happen, like broken noses. I mean, my nose is a completely different shape to what I was born with, because of the fact that I've had my nose broken twice. So it has got a little bit of a hook on it, and this, that, and the other. So yeah, there's lots of things that would have changed over time, and some of these photos that are being shown, and such as the ears are slightly different, and but are they enough to actually say that this person didn't exist? That's the question you've got to ask. And but it's not just Paul who they're saying. It's all of them. They all have distinctive or non-distinctive, should I say, differences. So therefore, a group as big as the Beatles didn't exist.
But they are going to attract that type of conspiracy theory sort of.
Of course you are, yeah. Without a shadow of a doubt. But if these guys didn't exist and they were all clones, then there must have been really good clones, because they came up with music like this.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram.
So there's the Beatles with 8 days a week, because that's another one of the conspiracy theories, is that because of their extensive workload, that's why because there is an actual theory that there's more than one lot of Beatles.
Wow.
There's about 5 or 6 different groups, all cloned. So Paul has 5 or 6 clones. John has 5 or 6 clones.
Right then, Paddy. So you're actually saying that, right? So if that being the case, if they're actually cloned,
Yeah.
so obviously when John got shot,
Yeah. Obviously, they must have went around and shot to the other 5 as well.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, John number 5 could be walking down the street and everybody, oh, John Lennon's alive. He's alive. It's alive. It sounds like what you call him? Brian Blessed of Flash Gordon. He's alive.
Well,
What do
got
you
that
mean?
somewhere.
John's alive. But yeah. So
Love that film.
So yeah, there's 5 or 6 of the clones of each of the. I mean, would you really want 5 or 6 Ringo stars? Yeah.
Not particularly, no.
But yeah, they would have to have killed them when George and John died. They would have to have killed them because otherwise, if the conspiracy theorists are right, but obviously they're not. But yeah, so that was why I played 8 days a week, because that was another theory, that there was so many, the workload was so big that they had to have more clones. So
Really interesting.
it is, and probably the weirdest thing. I mean, we could talk all night about
Literally.
literally. Yeah, because there's so many conspiracy theories out there. I just picked a couple just to, I mean, I didn't actually. I picked a couple to last an hour. Believe it or not, I was only going to do conspiracy theories for an hour, but it actually took 3 hours to get through them.
Plus the start of the evening.
Well, that's it, yeah. So we're going to move on to other things. I mean, Dave's posted that picture on the Ambron Radio Facebook page about the UFO. So have a look at that and tell me what you think, or tell us what you think. We will let you know via Facebook when the next paranormal experience is going to be, because we're fast approaching the end. We'll probably, the way it's going, we'll probably come up with a subject for the next one.
I think
from the list of paranormal, because as I say, 4 hours we've spoke about conspiracy theories.
But guys, seriously, if you're out there and we know you're listening, send us a message. All right, get in contact with the show. It's 60777 and the text. And if you start your text message with 89MX4, so that's 60777, and start your message with 89MX4. Send us a message. Get in contact with us on the Amber and Radio Facebook page. Leave us a message, all right? And we'll give you a shout out. I think is probably the best thing.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, if there's any conspiracy theories that you know of,
yes,
let us know.
Educate me.
But we'll definitely be coming back. I mean, we're going to be talking about lots of ghost stories and stuff like that. There's lots of subjects we could discuss, and this is exactly what I said when we first thought about the paranormal experience. There's lots of things we could discuss, and this is exactly what we're going to do. So, all that's left to do is for us to move off. So, it's good night from me.
And it's good night from him.
Good night.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
It's the Paranormal Experience on Ambron Radio. With your host, Paddy McGough.